morning. Welcome to the April 17th meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. Members of the committee are Councillor Janice Lukes from the Waverley West Ward, Councillor Matt Allard from St. Boniface, Councillor John Arlico from River Heights, Fort Garry. We also have members of our public service with us here this morning. You'll see them at various points. Our clerk is Brendan Harris. Our CFO is Tracy Graham. And we also hi Tracy.
Hi.
Tracy. All right, there's Matt Pryberg from our as well. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. We are starting this morning's meeting with an appeal hearing. We could have the clerk introduce the item and the process.
We could just start with a motion for the last meeting.
Councillor Orlico moves that the minutes of the meeting held on March 7th, 2025 be taken as read and confirmed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it's your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal under the Heritage and Economic Development Incentive Program Bylaw number 64 of 2022 at 820 Taylor Avenue. The process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. All participants have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. Once you've been heard, you can either remain in the Zoom meeting or leave and continue to watch live via the city's YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute your audio player now. I'll turn it over to the administration for a brief opening.
Thank you, Clerk. You're the chair. Just by way of background, the Heritage and Economic Development Incentive Program, HEDI as we call it, was approved by Council in May of 2022. This program provides municipal rebates of municipal property taxes, as we sometimes refer to them as TIF grants, to support various developments, including service parking lots in the downtown, redevelopment of heritage buildings, as well as new and expanded businesses. And the program that's at issue here would fall to the latter category of the program. Just for context, the project here involves a redevelopment of the former Manitoba Hydro building on Taylor Avenue. Development includes by NORAM's creation. The redevelopment will include, as I understand it, childcare, some medical services, dental services, as well as various other services. But getting back to the HEDI program, a core objective of the HEDI program is to target TIF support only to those developments that would have not otherwise taken place, but for TIF grant being in place. In other words, what we want to do is target the TIF incentives only to those projects that would not have otherwise occurred without the incentive being in place. And so this is the but-for principle. It's kind of the principle that underpins TIF programs. To ensure that principle is built into the HEDI program, we've included clause 6.2a in the bylaw that states that an application for TIF shall not be approved under the program if construction has begun on the development. And construction is further defined in the bylaw to include excavation and other work required to prepare the property for construction. So the applicant, or as the appellant in this case, was advised of these key conditions before the submission to this program was received on December 20th, 2024. On January 8th, pursuant to a request from me, the applicant advised me via email that there had been the following work done to the building prior to the application. And the work includes removal of exterior finishes within the north portion of the building, asbestos abatement again within the north portion of the building along Taylor, which includes removal of asbestos floor tiles, asbestos piping elbows, asbestos containing drywall, as well as installation of a concrete accessibility ramp on the east side of the building. So based on the information that was provided by the applicant, as well as visual inspection of the building itself, I concluded in my capacity as the designated employee responsible for the program that construction as defined in the bylaw had already started prior to the application submitted, and therefore I could provide a TIF grant to support the project, and I advise the applicant accordingly. So at the end of this, I mean, I don't want to leave the committee with the impression that this is in any way an indication of the merits of the project. The project is good. I think it's a good adaptive reuse building. Clear for the record. The only point I'm making here is that under the terms of the bylaw governing the program, as I've indicated, I could provide a TIF to support a project that has already started construction under the definition of bylaw. That's what I have.
Great, appreciate the background. Any questions before we hear from the appellant?
What is yes, Mr. Chair, through you.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Allard.
What is the definition of a project having begun in the bylaw?
Well, so construction is defined as excavation. So if you start excavation or you start other work on the property prior to TIF application, that is defined as construction start
Okay, specifically excavation
and other work.
and other work. Okay, that's comprehensive. Okay, thank you.
So this work, when did the work start?
Well, the work started prior to the application being received.
Sure, so
Yeah.
what's the time difference from when the work started to when the application was received?
Well, the work had started quite a time before the application received. I don't know the exact date that the work started, but I mean, the key point here is that the work started for the application submitted, so in the terms of the bylaw.
And how did you find out the work started?
The applicant emailed me a detailed list of what had occurred. And if you drive by the building, it's clear that
And when people are awarded a TIF, all of the details are explained to them?
so this is on our website. It's very clear on the website that if the construction has started, TIF can't be removed.
How much is the TIF for?
So in this case, we would provide, if it qualified, up to 5 years of property tax relief on 80% of the increment. So a rough calculation here would probably be, if it went to 4 or 5 years, in the order of $700,000.
How much?
700,000 for 5 years.
For 5 years?
Yeah, based on an estimate of the incremental tax.
Right, right.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm gonna have another question.
Please go ahead.
So if we do create what presumably would be a precedent here, could that mean perhaps that any construction that has been beneficiary or any building that happens could potentially, I'm inferring here from if the committee were to grant the appeal, that anyone could say, yes, I've constructed this building and I also think I should get TIF funding after the construction begins. I guess, is that a concern for the public service?
I can speak to that.
Yeah, or is that
So
legal?
the question on the table right now is, has construction started prior to the decision?
Yes.
If construction has indeed started prior to the decision, the appeal can't be granted legally. The provision regarding construction dictates whether or not the administration can consider the application. It was not denied based on the evaluation criteria. It's being denied based on the provision that construction has started. So if the committee does determine that construction has indeed started, you would not be able to grant the appeal because it would be in contravention of the bylaw.
Okay,
Okay, so just wait here. So they were granted the TIF. They weren't granted the TIF. So they're applying for the TIF, but they started construction.
and the bylaw says you can't get a TIF.
Well, that's for us to determine. They're appealing that.
And their letter of appeal is disputing the fact that they started construction.
So anyone can come to an appeal though, then, to his point going forward. So I've got, say, a developer who wants to start construction, which actually I do, which actually wants a TIF, and they start. And then they apply for the TIF.
If there's no question that they had started, they would not be able to go for the TIF.
So the question to litigate is whether or not construction started or not.
Correct. And just one point of clarification as well, if the appeal is allowed, This would not mean that the TIF is granted. This would mean that the application could be reviewed in accordance with the evaluation criteria in the bylaw. Based on the committee's determination that construction
If
had
not-
not started.
They have not been granted a TIF right
Right.
now.
So what allows them to appeal?
Decision from a director?
It's based on the decision because there's, I don't necessarily want to use the dispute, but there's a differing opinion as to whether or not construction has started.
Oh. So the definition of construction is rather relevant then.
Which has been stated by the public service as excavation and other work.
Right? Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions of public service at this time? Okay, we'll call forward the appellant.
Okay, so at this time we will call forward the appellant, Matthew Single. If you'd like to come forward, you'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation after you state your name. You just come up with the front here.
Morning, Matthew Single, finance representative from Norway House Cremation. Before we would begin, I would just ask that Dion Clark, Councillor of Norway House Cremation, just lead us in a short opening prayer.
I don't know what it's on, what we can ask them to see, that number, there's a people's problem. Look at it. So we'll. We ask you for strength, for knowledge, for peace, for everything that you give us every day. We thank you for the opportunity to be here among men and women, people be called to lead the city and the people of the city. We thank you for the knowledge and the strength you've given them, for the prayers that's been covering them, for the people that they serve. We ask you, Lord, to be with us, give us the strength to be here today. Give us understanding of the situation and how we can move forward. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Councillor Clark's actually going to begin with some opening remarks here.
Okay, we have a procedure and actually, no, it's gonna be,
They are all part of the appellant team.
Okay.
If you do want to change the order of speaking,
We would like to change the order to Councillor Clark to begin, followed by Joel Jackson, followed by myself. With Councillor Clark. Thank you.
so in that case, we will call forward Dion Clark. You'll have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation after you state your name.
Thank you so much, council. It's an honor to be here and to be among the people of the city. Good morning to Councillor Barati, Councillor Allard, Councillor Lukes, Councillor Councillor for the. Thank you for visiting our building. Thank you for taking the time to visit us today. This truly means a great deal to our nation. My name is Councillor Dion Clark from Norway House. As you may be aware, Norway House Cremation had made significant investment in December of 2023 with the acquisition of 820 Taylor. Since that time, we've committed countless hours to development and thoughtful vision for this building. One that reflects not only the goals of the First Nation, but also the broader needs of the city and its residents. We've engaged in design, consultation, and planning to ensure that the space becomes a hub of opportunity, inclusion, and long-term benefit. Joel, our project manager and owner's representative, will walk you through the building's design and its intended uses. Matt, our finance representative, will speak to the application itself. But before I pass it over, I would like to take a moment to tell you more about who we are and what this project means to Norway House Cremation and Indigenous peoples living in Winnipeg. Norway House Cremation is one of the largest cremations in Manitoba, with a population of over 8,000 members located at the convergence of Lake Winnipeg and the Nelson River, Our community has a long history, historical and cultural gathering place and center for trade, leadership, and knowledge. Today, the legacy continues through our investment in health, education, infrastructure, and economic development. We are a nation that leads with vision. We believe in the building for the next generation, investing in opportunities that create pathways to prosperity, not just for On Reserve, but in the urban centers where many of our members live, work, and raise families. This project on 820 Taylor is more than real estate. It's a step forward for our nation, broader urban setting strategy. It's a broad presence. It's about partnership. It's about making space for Indigenous business, service providers, and entrepreneurs in the city that many of our members call home. We believe the building can become a model of how municipal and First Nation governments can work together to create shared value. We're hopeful that this project will stand as a symbol of progress, a place where reconciliation is not only spoken about, but actively lived out through economic inclusion, collaboration, and envision. Thank you again for your time and willingness to engage with Matt. I will pass it over to Joel to walk you through the design and future plans for the space.
I appreciate all this background information, but can you speak to the matter that we're having to deal with today, specifically as work started on the site?
I can bring some clarity to the questions that were asked. Maybe if the couple of questions could be restated one more time so I can properly answer them.
Okay, just has work started on the site?
We purchased the building just December 2023, so we started some work last week just to accommodate for accessibility, and that was very important that we make sure the building's accessible, and a ramp was installed for the people that need accessibility to the building, which was no access to the north side of the building. No ramp was available on that side.
I'm not sure if I'll ask you, because that's not all you guys have done. I've walked the site, I've been in there, it's fantastic, it's a wonderful project, but it's not just a ramp that was installed.
Yeah, ramp on the north side, and the inside, we wanted to see how we want to go forward. So obviously remediation had to be done, and we wanted to see the inside. So it was more or less removing the remediation project before going forward.
So you're telling me no electrical work was done, which it was, I saw it. There was lots of electrical work being done in the rooms.
There was a lot.
Walls were being reformed, flooring was being removed, by asbestos. I'm gonna need to be convinced, I'm telling both groups right now, there was a fair bit of construction going on in that site. So
I do agree with you.
So you're gonna find that for us.
I'm not.
I didn't say I'm not putting you on the spot. I just want to maybe reach out to your next colleagues who'll come up.
I do agree with you. But like any space, it was an existing building, and we look at it as an opportunity to make the building better.
Wonderful.
And before we make a huge investment, we wanted to take the opportunity to sit here with you.
To be clear, the proposed project that you guys are working on is a retrofitting or change of the building, not demolishing the building and starting from scratch.
Not demolishing the building.
Okay, Councillor Lutz?
Who's the project manager? Are we, someone speaking to that?
Joel.
Okay,
Joel Jackson.
perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Allen? Oh, sorry, sir, if you, don't worry, no more questions.
No
Thank you.
problem. I can ask questions all day.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Allen,
To
thank you.
the appellant, first off, thank you. This seems like an excellent project. I don't think that's what we're talking about today. I'm reading section 6, subsection 10. It says the definition of what constitutes quote construction end quote. It does include excavation and other work to prepare the property for construction. So I guess, has there been other work to prepare the property for construction, and has there been any excavation?
So, Councillor, if I can
Okay, hold on.
That's my question is for the Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I can ask.
And if you're not aware, that's okay. Thank you for.
I can answer your questions.
Okay.
Yes, like, shared earlier, there was a ramp installed on the north side, so if there was excavation that was installed to make it accessible for anybody, any building that was being used, it was an existing building, and any existing buildings should be made accessible for all those that have special, need special accessibility to any building. So that was a gesture that we wanted to make sure for anybody that access the building, and that should not be an obstacle. It should not be considered as a new construction per se initiative. It should be standard at any building existing. A former building should be made accessible to anybody, so that should be a non-issue. But as for going forward for any construction to an existing building, you need to know where you're going to go with the building. You need to know the obstacles before you go forward. So as part of the proper planning, proper consultation with the leadership of Norway House, we need to know the potential cost of renovating and building a new building, making it to a new building, something we can all be proud of. The building's been sitting there for a long time, and it was just over a year ago we purchased the building. It's not very long ago, and construction didn't start a long time ago. We've tried to expedite to see where we want to go with this building, but before we go forward, we must know the bone structure of the building, and we don't want to put people in harm's way, so remediation had to be done immediately. And I think this is all safety standard stuff and accessibility, and I don't think we've done anything going forward. All we've done basically is gone backwards to kind of see where we want to go forward from. So that's the way I look at the building. It is an existing building, an old building. If you want to look at it as a historic building, it's a very prestigious building that I think the city of Winnipeg and Manitoba is very proud of. And I think it's a unique opportunity for the nation of Norway House and the city of Winnipeg to have an opportunity to go forward together. We are the new people on the block in construction. This is not something we do every day. And we do recognize that there's other people that this is what they do day in and day out. This is not something that we plan to make a lot of money off of, but this is an opportunity how we can build and create a future for our nation and to establish ourselves. And we're not coming here to ask for a free building. We're just asking for an opportunity to look at this and to look at it as that was not about new construction. That was simply accessibility and making a safe place for people to work in right now. So we do have people there. So we want to make sure it's safe and accessible. So that should be a standard off everybody. That's my personal opinion. And that's why I'm asking everybody in the room to maybe look at it as that an opportunity. If that's going to change the way things move forward, maybe we should look at and bring some definition. What does construction mean? Putting a shovel in the ground, that's construction. It's all optics and how you want to describe it. Repairing a broken pipe in the ground, that can be considered as construction. So it's all about how we want to define it, and it should be something that I think it should be considered as just making it right before we go forward.
Risk of muddying the waters even just so slightly, but why the TIF path as opposed to the Indigenous Economic Zone? Like, it's a fairly sizable site.
I can't answer that. I'm not
That's
sure.
fair.
I can't answer that. But we see this as an opportunity again.
I don't know,
Working
for just urban reserve, but I think I think I got the right formal name now. Yeah.
Yeah, urban reserve is something we've contemplated, and it's not something we've decided to go forward with at the moment.
No.
And we do understand that we want to be owners of property.
Okay.
And that's something we hold that's very valuable to any business to have real estate and have owners of property. So that's something we want to maintain and hold. So.
Fair. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Next appellant.
Up next, we'll call forward Joel Jackson.
Hi, my name is Joel Jackson, and I'm the project manager for the redevelopment of the Norway House Cree Nation Embassy. The Norway House Cree Nation Embassy is the former Manitoba Hydro headquarters located at 820 Taylor. Norway House Cree Nation purchased the building in December of 2023 with the intention to set the building up as an Indigenous business hub. The building will consist of a 6,000 square foot conference area, 108,000 square feet of office space, 9,000 square feet of medical, dental, and pharmacy space, cafeteria and restaurant space, a daycare, and retail space. In the state the building was purchased in, all of the componentry, so the mechanical, the electrical, the curtain wall, was at their end of life. And it wasn't set up to be a multi-tenant building, as well as the building needing asbestos abatement. To date, the construction that we've done in the building has been asbestos abatement, interior finish removal. We have done electrical and mechanical disconnects in the north portion of the building. So we have phased the renovation so that Norway House can maintain use of the south wing of the building. And so that south wing has been used for Jordan's Principal. It has been used for Norway House Cree Nation Child and Family Services. We have a construction sub-office set up in there. And the south wing of the building did not have an accessible ramp to it. So to maintain use of the building while we planned our renovation for the north side of the building, we obtained a separate permit for that ramp. So we obtained a separate development permit and a separate building permit for the east ramp that we installed on the building to maintain use of that south wing while we plan our renovation of the north. So the north building, we did start our interior finish removal and our asbestos abatement so that we were doing demolition while we do our design for the whole building. So it is a design build project, and the schedule is fairly aggressive, but we have not done any new electrical, new mechanical, new curtain wall in the building to date. We have applied for our development permit for the new building, and we have obtained it. And we have applied for our building permit, which is in the process of review currently. But the only new construction that we have done is that ramp to maintain access of the east side of the building. So I hope that answers some of the questions that you had for Councillor Dion Clark previously. Now, as a part of our ongoing efforts to build a strong and collaborative relationship with the City of Winnipeg, Norway House Cree Nation has proactively engaged with key city representatives through the planning and design process. Early in the project's development, Norway House Cree Nation met with the area councillor, John Orlecoe, to present the vision for 820 Taylor. It was a positive and supportive meeting. Furthermore, on June 27th, 2024, a project review meeting was held between Norway House Cree Nation and the city's urban planning department. During this meeting, city staff confirmed that the proposed development complies with the existing zoning and land use regulations. Principal Planner Michael Robinson advised that the project could proceed to permit application without the need for variances, as our project had compliant to the current zoning rules, indicating a clear alignment with the city planning policy and expectations. This engagement highlights Norway House Cree Nation's commitment to transparency, compliance, and a meaningful partnership with the City of Winnipeg in bringing this transformative project to life. So if anybody has any questions at this time, please feel free.
This sounds like just a fantastic project. Like it sounds like what's going in there is going to serve the First Nations stupendously. Like it sounds like a really good project. Great use of the building. I drive by it all the time. I think it's perfect use of the building. Who's sort of in charge of figuring out permits and grants and funding? Like, who's in charge of trying to coordinate all of that?
So we have a financial team that works with Norway House Cree Nation. They oversee the finances of Norway House, so they are involved on the financial side. And then Daisy Construction is the contractor on the construction side that is overseeing the construction management of the project. And I myself am the owner's representative of the project.
So who is made aware of the TIF requirements? Which team or group would be made aware of that?
The financial team.
Financial team.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a great project. I imagine you've got federal and provincial money in this too, or do you have other funding in it from other levels of government?
To date, we do not, I
Okay.
don't believe.
So I have actually three different First Nations in my ward that are undertaking apartments, multi apartments.
Yes.
40% is affordable, 40% of the apartment. They too, and I'm speaking to Mr. Dryberg about this, they too are seeking TIF funding. So whatever we do here is gonna set a precedent for my crowd too, right? So, and we want, like the city wants to support housing, we wanna support exactly initiatives like you're doing. But I don't know, we have rules, right? So the definition of construction, and I guess I have to ask the public service back again, but my understanding, I didn't go on site, I'm walked around on site. I'm listening to the definition of construction, I'm listening to what you're saying, that construction has started, that's what you're saying? Whether it be for ramps, whether it be for electrical asbestos abatement or whatever. So like it seems like construction has started. And that's what you're saying. Okay, so we don't even have enough TIF money to go around to everyone, so that's another issue. But the point being is, whatever we decide here is gonna set a precedent. And I guess I didn't ask the public service this, but I will when it's, can I ask you this now, or am I on the line to ask him now? I wanna know, has this happened before in the past? Do we have any other precedent on this? Can I ask you this now?
You can ask clarifying questions at any time, public service.
Okay, has this happened before?
Sure, yeah, we did have another appeal under the heading program. This is going back, I think, 2 years ago for a project just down the way here, 52 Albert Street. Same
Scenario,
similar
what
section.
happened there?
Well, the construction had started
Right,
prior to him.
Getting
The
picked up.
applicant in that case of.
So they applied and then what, or they appealed it?
applied, I had to decline his application. He then decided to appeal to this committee or the previous incarnation of this committee, and the committee upheld this.
The committee upheld your decision.
So a reminder, how big is 820 Taylor?
820 Taylor is 200,000 square feet on,
And I've been in the building, but I think it was in the 90s, but a long time ago, long time ago. So Norway House has been using the facility as is without any substantial renovations?
so we have used the south wing of the building, which is, if you take the floor template, the south wing of the building is approximately 7,000 square feet per floor. The north portion of the building would be approximately 28,000 square feet per floor. So they have been utilizing that south wing, but the mechanical is constantly in a state of disrepair, requiring work. There is asbestos abatement needed in that space, not a concern until we start doing work, but that needs to be done. The windows are all foggy and need to be replaced, so it needs to be addressed soon. And so they are in there until we complete the construction on the north wing of the building, at which time we'll transition them into that completed space.
Councilor Collins?
Okay, has any excavation occurred on site? Any at all?
Well, he said they.
No, I'm looking at very clearly looking at the bylaw. Does include excavation and other work. That is the question that that I'm interested in answering, because that's what the bylaw says. So
Okay,
any excavation?
I will say that excavation was done for the ramp on the east side to maintain use of the existing building. No other excavation has been done at the building.
So you believe that this work would have been done whether this building would be going forward or not?
Correct.
That is your belief?
Say that again, sorry.
Your belief is that this work would have been done whether the expansion project or this project were to go forward or not?
Yes, the ramp would have needed to be done regardless of the redevelopment of the overall building.
And when did this occur?
The ramp was constructed last September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when was the plan conceived to, well, to establish the full project?
The plan was conceived to start the original project back in January of 2024.
And so the,
But this design was ongoing.
so the plan happened first and then the ramp?
It was concurrent between both the design of the overall project and the ramp. The ramp was prioritized to maintain access of that.
So was the ramp part of the project?
It is a separate project.
But it happened concurrently?
Yes.
Okay.
So the ramp is $150,000. The overall redevelopment of the building is going to be an approximately $40 million investment.
And there was not any other excavation other than that related to the ramp on the site?
That is correct.
I mean, or other work is the other part of it and pulling wires.
Well,
wires could be.
I'm stuck on and.
We'll talk about asbestos
cats
abatement,
and
what needs
dogs.
to be done with asbestos abatement.
Not cats and or dogs, cats or dogs.
Cats and dogs.
And construction is excavation and other work, right? And
Describe construction or asbestos abatement. What has to be done?
Removal of asbestos pipe elbows in the mechanical system. Removal of asbestos floor tiles throughout the building. Removal of sprayed fireproofing in the ceiling of each space. Removal of asbestos mastic in the header of the curtain wall system throughout the exterior of the building. Removal of joint compound in drywall. So that is the asbestos in the building.
So that's pretty intense.
It's a lot of work.
On every floor?
Yes.
Yes.
With the exception of the sprayed fireproofing would be limited to an area of the third floor.
Okay.
We'll call the next appellant.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Call forward Matthew Single. Matthew, if you'd like to come forward, you'll have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation after you state your name.
Matthew Single with Norway House Finance Team. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us this morning. So our engagement with the Heritage and Economic Development Program began last fall when we heard about it through the provincial stream. At that time, we began the application process and invited the local councillor down to the building for an information session, and the meetings were productive. Now we understand that as per the program guidelines, the start of what has been described as the demolition was considered the beginning of the construction process. And this unfortunately led to the original application being denied. We acknowledge that there's a difference of opinion in terms of what begins and the construction process itself. But today we're asking for the Standing Finance Committee to reconsider and to move forward our application into the TIF process. We believe the project brings significant value not only to Norway House, but to the broader city of Winnipeg. And we look forward to working with you on that project. Like I've discussed, we've been working with the province of Manitoba through the Manitoba Capital Works program. Their parameters for the application are obviously a bit different. Where we stand currently, our application with the province is being considered and is moving forward. There isn't a stipulation under the provincial stream for construction that has started. We're looking forward with municipal support alongside with provincial collaboration that we can set a powerful example cross-governmental partnership in advancing reconciliation and economic opportunity for Norway House Cree Nation. Thank you again for your time, your consideration, and be happy to answer any other questions.
Councilor Lutz?
So did they explain to you in detail about the TIF program? Like, did you understand, like, when you were fishing around for the program? Did you meet with someone from the city and they explained it?
We didn't have I guess a one-on-one meeting or any direct correspondence with anybody from the program as we were applying to indicate that it would have been a wasted effort or something that we shouldn't take a look into given the state of the project at the time. Again, the individuals that we had, I guess, submitted the application to was Matt Dryberg, and at the time the application was submitted, that's the first time that it was indicated that it may not qualify due to the difference of opinion in terms of when construction had started.
So I know with many federal programs and some provincial programs, we can't, and you know, we if projects start, they're not necessarily covered. The work isn't necessarily covered. I mean, this is really difficult. I really want to support this project, but I literally have 3 First Nations building like incredible housing opportunities close to the university, 40% reduced rate, like you get all that. So it's nothing to do with the project. It's to do with the precedent that's set because they're going to be pounding on my door wanting the same thing, right? And they have spectacular projects too, right? Because I've done a couple other projects with First Nations where, you know, it's so close to the university, kids come down, families come down, they get this great $900 a month, changes lives, right? And what this project, what you're proposing, same thing, fabulous project. But I don't know, we're really in a hard place here because we got a lineup waiting for TIFs. We don't have enough money for TIFs, right? And if we do, I don't know, like I just feel myself, if I do this, I know that I'm gonna have to be sitting here for 3 more appeals. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, if I may add just one more component to this as well is the building application, the building permit and application was just submitted to the city several weeks ago. It actually hasn't been accepted or approved yet. And therefore, we would actually need that to proceed with further redevelopment of the new mechanical electrical systems.
So are you saying you don't have permits for the work you're doing already?
Construction that we're putting forward. And so that's sort of the basis of our original argument was that, again, we view this as the stripping of the asbestos, the removal of old components. We view that as necessary work to be done to get the building into a base state where we can then move it forward. And so, I totally respect the difference of opinion between where construction begins on both sides. But I think that was the point that we're really trying to push forward was that, again, in shell of the building itself, that's the part that we wanted to kind of highlight.
So it kind of sounds like there's a difference of opinion then. What you're saying is there's a difference of opinion on the definition of construction.
Right, which is, I think, what Councillor was trying to hammer down.
That might have to be legally decided. Okay, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else in support of these?
Councilor Wading, just
Yeah, go ahead.
the question, just in a different way, to the,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Councillor Allard. Councillor Allard has one. Sorry.
He actually has a question.
yeah. Well, I'm going back to the interpretation of construction because everything else pertaining to this hearing, I mean, a lot of it is speaking to the benefits of the project, but considering 610 for the purposes of clause 2A, construction does not include the planning, but does include excavation and other work. So perhaps I could ask the question with the negative logic. How does the work done to date not include construction as defined as excavation and other work? Like that's the question we have to rule on today, according to the bylaw. That's why the appeal has been filed, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So how does the work done to date, how is that not construction as per 610 in the bylaw?
Sure. So I mean the component of the building that we have discussed and highlighted was the main envelope of the building that we have removed interior fixtures, asbestos. But the component that we haven't discussed that nothing has been altered on is that east wing, the wing that runs along Harrow Avenue. That component of the building hasn't been altered in any way. And so if we take a look at the negative definition in terms of other work that hasn't been done, there's been no work done on that portion of the building. So if we want to take a look at potentially an alternative is separating the building into the second component, that would be the second phase of the redevelopment.
Like what's the legal title? Is this not all one legal title? So what seems to me the TIF would be applied to the whole property? Maybe that's a question for the public service for clarification. TIFs are applied to properties, they're not applied to sections of buildings. Okay. All right. I think I got the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody from legal services to go over this difference, excavate and like the word excavate often, I looked up the definition of excavate and I've got questions. Like, do we have anybody what that and means? Like if
I don't have
to
anyone.
me, it does not seem like excavate is a hard word. Other work, sure, but excavate, I'm not 100% sold on. Do you have any from legal services too?
Not in the meeting, but I'm sure if we do a quick recess, it could be arranged.
I don't know.
I
No,
mean, if you think about the asbestos abatement on every floor, what has occurred, like you can.
Is that excavation?
nitpick
Yeah,
about
probably.
excavate, but I mean,
Yes.
I've seen asbestos abatement.
right.
It's a.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
I think the question is like common use in English construction includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is it a category of things or is it including every one of the things?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in support of the appeal?
So that concludes those who had pre-registered in support of the appeal. Just to confirm with the gallery, is there anyone else here in support of the appeal? Seeing none, we can move on to those in opposition. We do have one person registered in opposition for this appeal. David Grant, I'm just asking you to unmute and start your video, and you'll have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation after you state your name.
Hello, and thanks for granting me this time. My name is David Grant. For many years, as a professional engineer with Manitoba Hydro, I knew this building. I became very attached to it. When it became apparent that Hydro had bought more office space than it could ever use, it became obvious to everyone that a new use would be needed or the structure would be destroyed. Like many other old commercial buildings, it seems that the office space here will not be fully utilized as office space. With the desperate need for care home space in Winnipeg, it is sad that 820 Taylor was not converted years ago into a large care home. It already had the access ramp and large commercial kitchen and cafeteria, and it's a very solid building. Anyway, and it's good to see it coming to a new use that will carry it forward for many decades. City Hall has rules. Without them, chaos would rule. This funding source is intended, as has been explained today, to help proponents decide to move forward with projects. If they apply and get this money, that fact can be used to help decide to go forward with any of these projects, this type of project. When this project began, the team should have planned the funding they would use. I believe other people, like when True North does something major, they line all their stuff up. Now, it may be that the NHCN team wasn't aware of this. Anyway, since NHCN already owns the property, they're committed to fixing it up. That project is going forward. In my understanding, this funding source does not actually apply. Knowing the rules for permits, zoning, and funding is an essential part of any project, especially in Winnipeg. There are many hundreds of such rules because no one seems ready to simplify and delete the rules in the city. Luckily for developers and owners, city staff are available for advice for anyone who asks. I support the initial denial of this funding application. The rule was not followed, so the taxpayer money should not flow. Other sources of money should be sought, and I'm sure they have been. The lesson here is that other proponents should apply for funding before they touch the place or start digging the holes. If you decide to reverse this denial, I hope you will ask staff to simplify the obstacles that building recyclers, such as NHCN, and developers face. I also ask you to ask staff and council for an appeal process for developer building folks like NHCN who have trouble with City Hall that is less costly and onerous than this sort of hearing. And that's all. I'll keep it brief and let you move on. Thank you.
Questions? No? All right. Any questions of the public service at this time? Councilor Wilco.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry?
Just as a matter of process, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Seeing none, is there anyone here who would like to speak for information on the appeal? Seeing none.
Thank you, clerk. Questions of public service?
Counselor, I'm torn because the reading of the bylaw is using excavation and other work. Grammatically, it could mean excavation and other work could be categories of terms of which there's like a non-exhaustive or exhaustive list, or it could mean both. So I don't know if we can get legal in or not, or if it's up to us to decide what "and" means.
Does include.
Include can introduce
No,
a
it's not.
category of terms.
It's not both. No, I'm pretty
That's
clear.
the category of terms
Well, in this case,
definition.
Other,
they did excavation and they have construction.
Has anyone said that?
For the rent.
Yes, there has been excavation. Okay, all right, then
I agree.
regardless of the definition, we all heard that excavation did occur.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think I smelled out the problem in this one, and again, Councilor Lukes is absolutely correct. And I'm casting the administration on this one now. Mr. Dryberg, the uniqueness about this project is that it's in a reuse of a building, right? So when we're talking about a field where you just bought a building, demo it, dig a hole, build a brand new thing. Well, you kind of know what the costs are. That's a pretty standard, maybe find something under the ground that's gonna be horrible, or find a water table too high, whatever, that kind of stuff does happen as well. So in this case, my question is gonna get to real quickly is, does the policy need to be amended or changed or considered to be changed for promoting things such as adaptive reuse, where how do you go into a building and just say, or maybe it doesn't matter, you just go into you just have the building, you apply and hope for the best, but you actually wouldn't know the project cost until you did some demo work. So is that that's where my head is going there right now. I think there's a gap for between new builds versus adaptive reuse builds. Is that something that is something in the policy, or do you think that really has any bearing in the policy, regardless if it's a new build or a reuse building?
I think the fundamental principle for TIF programs is you want to structure the incentive in such a way as that it makes the project go. It's an incentive to get the project over the finish line, right? So in the case you're talking about, what I would think is that a developer of planning a renovation of building would do an assessment of what those costs are prior to starting, getting an idea of what the overall costs are, right? And then once they get that, then they can have an idea.
Maybe class 5, whatever at the time.
Yeah, they can
But
do
they sell
formulas, they can whatever they're deciding they want to do with the building, they can build a spreadsheet to look at what the return is, and then if there's a gap there, then they say we need property tax relief in order to make the project.
So that's how they can get there.
Based on as you point out, high level, that's right. That's the way these are.
Right, so you don't have to be in construction, you just get a high level, a lot of investors here, it's nasty, it's gonna cost $10 million.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to be judicious in improving these tips, right?
And again, policies evolve, so that's what I'm looking at right now, how, maybe taking it back, and again, we have also the Aboriginal aspect of this, where we're I think it's very important to encourage the average activity in our city and support that, and part of our goals all along. That's very important. But right now I'm trying to figure out, is there that difference when I'm hearing you say, I'm gonna summarize, the reuse or brand new, they're the same thing.
Yeah, this is in no way, I mean, the merits of this project are good.
There's no question about that. Maris,
They're not an issue.
yeah, and they didn't show you the pictures, but they may later, but not today, but they're quite impressive. There's nothing, anybody here is remotely just saying the program's a bad program. But Councillor Lukes was absolutely accurate about the idea of Pandora's box opening up. So that's why he's asking questions. There are difference between the reused version versus the new version. And when I'm hearing you say, no, you do a high level and you say, wow, we're not gonna make it at all with this. We need some financial support. So we're gonna apply for the TIF now before we start ripping out asbestos. Thank you.
I can think of an analogy, like if you're considering buying insurance for a thing, you buy the insurance before the thing that you're insuring for happens. So if you have house insurance, you don't buy it after your house. You know,
Like to say that.
has an you don't buy it after the house burns down. You have fire insurance before.
Yes, we could. Yeah, you're right. Same thing.
So in terms of procedure now, there's an opportunity for the appellants to come back and respond to what's been said and commented upon.
I
Absolutely.
just
Sorry, you have one more
wanted to
question?
say one other thing with with two different developers. We've even talked about, is there a way that they could start construction and then make an application to council to waive the TIF, right? So we're looking at which, probably is not gonna fly, but everyone's looking at it to find a way to access the TIF for these great projects. I guess that's the point of all this, right? My point is great projects, not enough TIF money. People want to get going.
Yep, absolutely.
Well,
All housing department.
two other questions, with Mr. Driver. What are there other opportunities for funding? We mentioned, they heard today that they've applied for the TIF funding province, different criteria. Is there other funding opportunities, either through the federal government or the city, which this group could apply to?
So as far as city funding sources, I'm not sure if there are any. Off the top of my head, I don't know if you know yourself the amount of higher the energy efficiency program. There's grants to provide energy efficiency upgrades. That would be one that comes to mind. There's federal money for childcare, that sort of thing. Those are potential opportunities that immediately come to mind.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll now call the appellants back.
Certainly. First up, we will call forward Dion Clark. We'll have up to 10 minutes to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm honored again one more time. I want to reiterate that I hear there's a lot of good questions, and upholding the seat and the laws and the procedures that you have to uphold is commendable. I do see this as an opportunity, and I've heard it shared already a few times. This is a great project. It's a huge opportunity for the city of Winnipeg and Norway House Cree Nation to collaborate and create an avenue for future projects to happen. Good projects, the same projects that are intended to bring harm to any areas of the city, but to create accessibility and opportunity for future business. And that's all it is. And it's not we're not asking for money. I believe it's a tax incentive to make it affordable for accessibility and for an opportunity for business to be successful. And that's something we all see, that opportunity for people to have an opportunity to create businesses, space to have that space to grow in, and where they'll have that supportive network around them, and an environment where they can have an opportunity to thrive. I know a lot of First Nations business have not flourished in the city, and we see this as an opportunity where First Nations can flourish in this, if they're given a space to do so. I think this is a huge opportunity. In Norway House Cree Nation, we've made strides in so many different areas: education, healthcare, economics, purchasing the first mine, first ever owned by a First Nation. We are looking forward for many generations to make an opportunity for our people to thrive in this city. And unfortunately, the city has been, have been seeing a lot of negative things going on in the city. And we're here to bring solutions to our people that are here, and not just our people from our nation, but other people from other First Nations, to give them that opportunity to thrive in the city. Unfortunately, we cannot change the past. We cannot change any wrongs that were done there, but we are looking forward and trying to create an opportunity to make this as a good project where we can do great things, where we can walk out of here thinking, you know what, we're going to do some changes. We're going to make an opportunity for great progress for future generations and create an avenue for future leaders to do great things with other people. So I'm grateful just to be here and the opportunity to be here and sit with you. I thank you for all the work you do. And, you know, you're here because of the people put you here, and to protect them and to lead them and to make decisions that will make their city better. And I believe that Winnipeg is a great city. I've traveled all over different places. I love it when I come back to Manitoba. Winnipeg's like the best little big city around, and I'm proud to be from Manitoba. I'm proud to be from the north. And when we look at the legislative building, the city, and we hear it all the time, they do the tours on this in the river. They're always pointing at that golden boy. They're saying the power is the north and the young people of the north. And I believe that to be true. When I was first heard that, I felt chills right through my body, knowing, you know what, that is so true, because the First Nation is the fastest growing demographic. Like it or not, we have to create avenues, we have to create opportunities, and to make it more affordable to be successful. And that's the way I see it. And before I go, I do want to leave a gift. I don't know who will pass it to, maybe the chair. It's a book on truth and reconciliation. It's a call to action. And it's just a gift just to remember that we're all obligated to try to move forward as a
I appreciate that, Councillor, just the nature of the public hearing and that, and
Yeah.
and our integrity commissioner rules and such. Receiving any type of gift is very
Okay.
awkward, so I
Yes,
just want to
I do honor that,
I
respect that.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you
No,
so much
thank
for
you.
that.
I do appreciate that, Councillor.
But again, I do thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to
Thank you
hear
for
the case.
coming.
And, you know, if we did have the foresight and the knowledge and I guess ultimately the experience. And like, again, this is a going forward opportunity for our nation and any other people that want to get into construction and making Winnipeg a better city. I think this is a huge opportunity. So I do thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will respect whatever decision you guys make today. I do thank you again one more time for the opportunity to be here. And it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much.
Any final questions? Hear none. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Next, I'll call forward Joel Jackson to speak in rebuttal.
Thank you very much. I do like the point that Councillor Allard had to say, or Orlico had to say about the void in this program missing the consideration of existing buildings. Now, if you take the construction that we have done to date versus construction, if you were to demo this whole building and apply for a TIF grant with a blank canvas of a bare property, I believe this project would be considered under the TIF grant. But because we left the building in place, we're not considered. Now, I think that is a void in this program that should be addressed. That's all I have to say at this moment.
Yes, Orlico?
So, yeah, I went down that trail a little bit. So did you hear they also said you didn't have to start construction yet? You could have done a high level assessment and then applied for the TIF.
Yeah.
You didn't have to start the construction, which you admitted you have done. So it's because again, you didn't have to start the construction to get that high level costing to see that, wow, we do need a TIF. And then apply there before you started doing all the other work.
Yeah.
You heard that as well?
Definitely. And this property in Winnipeg is a very large parcel of land. It's 7 acres. And there is the potential for development on the west parcel.
Yeah.
Now, if we do receive this grant, it does help us out with the viability of future projects on the west parcel that may not be as viable if we do not receive this grant. So for an overall economic development for the city of Winnipeg, if we receive the grants and we put more money into the west parcels of this property, it would be an overall benefit to the city.
And you are aware, as we talked about, if you did do the parking lot side, and built a brand new building, TIF wouldn't be a problem here, and you didn't start construction. That actually would fit all our criteria in there. But that, so you're actually, your next project, I know you didn't want to do both at once, and we talked about that a little bit, because of but the next project would also, I would say, based upon our criteria, as long as you don't start construction, is on a parking lot. It's a great infill project spot. That would actually likely, can't say would be, likely be applicable for the TIF grant.
It may be, but it is on the same parcel of land. So that would be something that's up for appeal as well. That there's no guarantee for us at that point. So.
Fair enough. And again, you're just appealing today. You're trying your best. And I don't just, I think it's great you're here. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe the other project, it's a property, there's lots of options, down the line on subdividing and all that kind of stuff, but we won't get to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very much. Other questions?
Okay, now we'll call forward Matthew Single. You'll have up to 10 minutes to speak in rebuttal to comments made.
Again, thank you, councillors, for having us down today. I think we've talked about this in some detail, but I think the largest opportunity is filling the void or the project definition in terms of, you know, beginning of construction. I think what we would ask for at this point is consideration to look at an opportunity to redefine where the building stands with that portion that hasn't begun construction, and consider that as a proportion of the entire building's project costs in terms of the prorated percentage that can be included in the TIF application. I understand it's under the same building title, legal description, but I think by definition, if we're going to go down that road, that would be the most applicable part that we could put forward and that we would like to have submitted and considered at this point in time. So again, as the building as a whole, I understand we have started some construction or other construction activities, but I think that there's a portion that we can still consider to be eligible as part of the program.
Yeah, so I guess the one thing I might want to say is, like, I've been involved in a lot of building construction over the last 10 years, and the city has a lot of, we're trying to reduce the number of permits or just processes in place. And I would just say, just really have someone with a fine-tuned comb go over all the processes and all the requirements and permits needed. And it's really, it's overwhelming. But I would just recommend that, I don't know if this is a new team, new project management team, or anyone used to construction. Rehabbing older buildings is always a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of permits and a lot of things. So I would just suggest that you have someone really on the team that goes through it all with fine-tooth comb, so we don't end up in a situation like this again.
Thank you very much. Okay, other questions? Okay. All right. So we have a motion.
Okay, just let me pull up the motion here. Process here. So where's all the,
Second page of the admin report.
Second page. It's very,
What are you?
very simple. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I'll move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All's in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed, carried.
that the appeal be denied, and the senior manager, economic development and policy officer, the chief administrative officer be confirmed. So I'm not supporting the appeal.
Yeah.
I'm not supporting the application.
Supporting reasons?
The supporting reasons,
Oh, no, apparently Not required.
No supporting reasons?
They're not required.
Well, I'm gonna give some,
Sure,
okay?
yeah, you're correct. Going on.
It extremely pains me to have to do this. Like this is an incredible project. What is being done is life-changing for people in the future. Like it is life-changing. And it just pains me to do this. But just from my realm of what I've got lined up next, it sets a precedent that we would be dealing with this nonstop. So, that's the reason why. It sets a precedent, really. And, I'll move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
We have, well, all previous, did you,
Yeah, I'm gonna be
quick comment?
very reluctantly as well, but again, Councilor Lutz, the TIF program as it's formed, is what it is. We do know there's construction started. We do know even how minor it is. There was excavation. What we really need to do, and this is what I pledge to do today, because I am going to be supporting Councilor Lutz. We really, as a city of Winnipeg, have been very focused and committed to urban Aboriginal economic development. This is one of those. So do we need a new TIF for those specific projects? I think probably. I think we need to look at that and define a little bit different. So I will commit, so it's not over yet, to try to work with the mayor's office and other in finance to see if there's another opportunity that the TIF that would support, again, with some of these same criterias and with also a little more guidance, that would really focus on urban Aboriginal economic development. It's really for the city of Winnipeg's growth, and we're seeing it right now. Much of City of Winnipeg's growth right now is from the Aboriginal sector. The Bank of Montreal, again, stop to name how many buildings are coming through. So does that say you probably don't need a TIF because there's already development happening everywhere already? I think that's the low fruit stuff. There's other stuff we need to be supporting, like groups like this, because it is something that we as the city of Winnipeg pride ourselves on. While I reluctantly, but I totally support Councilor Lutz because there really is no gray area. The gray area that they try to partition off the building into different pieces, I understand. We talked about it a little bit when we met. It is what it is. But again, it is an urban Aboriginal economic opportunity that we need to be able to support. If it's not through this program, maybe we need a new program. So I'll commit to looking at those opportunities with Councillor Duncan, I guess, probably there.
And I'll 100% support you on this.
Because, for this, but it would have to be as stand today, I will be supporting the Councillor Lutz.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Now you move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
Okay, I'll move that the appeal be concluded.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter and is not subject to further appeal.
Thank you for your patience, everybody. We'll now move on to the regular agenda. We have the semi-annual update from EDW.
We do have one delegation first.
Oh, we got delegation first. Okay, David Grant.
So at this time, we will go into delegations. David Grant is to be heard in opposition to financial implications of US tariffs on City of Winnipeg Report 7, transition to zero emission buses Report 5, and Winnipeg Police Service 2024 fourth quarter financial report, Report 3.
Okay,
Good morning again.
me too.
Try and keep this
No, to
short.
David, to Donald Trump, let him know. All right, salute.
Okay. Report number 3 on WPS income, the income portion of this report. The report purports to cover the fourth quarter of 2024. The income numbers shown are not for the fourth quarter. To understand the financial position of WPS, which is one of your important functions, we need to see what we were promised. This is a year-to-date report. Where is the statement for the fourth quarter? Was PE income very low during the fourth quarter? It may have been, but it isn't reported. The millions in profit for a single designated construction zone, or DCZ, pushed income over the top for 2025. The service and its PE contractor have failed to inform you in this report that this income was maximized by enforcing hundreds of meters down the road from the zones authorized by the 2013 bill. Page 4 says that PE was used to protect workers. That's a noble thing. Before the 2013 bill became law, Minister Braun was quite insistent that our DCZ sites protect workers, as do road authorities around the world, with concrete jersey barriers. If we all wanted worker safety, concrete would stand between traffic and workers. It does not in Manitoba. A ticket in the mail a week later does nothing to prevent a car going too fast from going out of control. Sadly, profit stands in the way of keeping workers safe with the proper barriers. You should not vote to accept this report until it is revised to include the location of the PE vehicles, the locations of all the DCZ and speed limit signs, and the actual zones occupied by workers. Only by wildly mislocating these related places, in violation of the legislation, was the income raised to this amazing level. By ticketing hundreds of meters after the drivers believe they have left the zone, you're punishing those who are otherwise careful and innocent. You're not ticketing scofflaw drivers. As the WPS board chairman so eloquently explained on TV recently, now that drivers are all careful, PE profit cannot be assured. If they follow the rules, profits will fall. Sorry about that. If PE follows the rules, profits will fail to meet budget. A few years ago, the chief explained, in a year when they didn't have an unusual PE situation, that it's only profitable when they have special situations created in the DCZs. If they were all properly engineered, the profit from your DCZs would dry up. This fact should be alarming to you as our financial experts, because it makes a difference of many millions of dollars. Moving on to the topic 5, zero emission buses. Winnipeg's transit plan, as explained here, requires the service to be affordable and sustainable. The hundreds of millions being spent on a handful of ZEBs proves that these plans are neither. Manitoba has no plan to significantly increase its electric capacity by more than a few percent over the next few decades. All of that power will be used by the 30 or 40% increase in population. There will never be enough power to supply an all-electric bus fleet. For ZEB in service in Manitoba, our power exports will be reduced. To replace those exports in those places, that much more coal will be burned in our downstream markets. Indirectly, if one is being negative, every ZEB that's in service here will be, in effect, coal-powered by burning more coal in North Dakota and Minnesota. We have read that this experiment will provide information on these technologies. For much less money, our folks could read the reports from other transit systems on their experiments with non-fossil buses. The fact that this modest set of purchases has failed to deliver on time in so many ways has made clear that the all-electric fleet dream will not necessarily follow the dream. Disappointment can be guaranteed. When a January status report says that a delivery is delayed until March, and that report is offered to City Hall in April, why is there no update? Did those deliveries actually happen in March? Those of us who prepared such reports all their lives know that there are situations where an addendum is essential. This is one of those times. And on the last topic, U.S. tariffs will affect the selling price for Manitoba-made Gerdau steel products offered for sale at their Fargo offices on Main Avenue. NFI, New Flyer, may have to adjust their workflows to match the exemptions that they can find. Items imported to Canada and paid for by the city do not face any U.S. tariffs. Any new tariffs that increase the cost of U.S. sourced items that are used in Winnipeg are Canadian tariffs, imposed entirely by bureaucrats in Ottawa at the direction of the Prime Minister. Not one has been approved by Parliament. Any new duty applied to goods coming into Canada is a purely Canadian fee that punishes Canadians, including the City of Winnipeg. Please ask staff not to mislead the public by mislabeling the fees paid to Ottawa. And thank you very much for the time to talk. Any questions?
Any questions? Hear none? Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the semi-annual report from EDW. Good morning. Thanks for waiting.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. You see, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, as a point of protocol, last time we were here, there was quite a bit of interest in tourism. And so I asked my colleague, VP, who leads our tourism function, Natalie Deason, to join me.
Perfect.
Are you comfortable with her co-presenting a component of this?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. The protocols.
Yep, you're good.
Provided for this, and observations.
This is not a delegation. This is like a staff presentation. So it's not like, you have
Right,
10
thank
minutes and whatever, but
Thank you very much.
go ahead. Are you guys middle children?
My mom.
Okay.
Thank you for noticing.
Did you vote on,
I did not.
yeah, it's not too late.
Okay.
What's this? What do you
You'll hear about it.
Okay.
Okay. I have an 8-year-old little child and she believes that she's the inspiration behind all this.
Ah, yeah.
So I'm just gonna let that run.
Yeah,
That's,
that's run.
Politicians. Think you're good? That's the crazy uncle, that's the fault, that's not me.
Get credit for so little to be a opportunity.
Make it.
That's dad, yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us today. My name is Ryan Kuffner, President and CEO of Economic Development Winnipeg, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to present our biannual update to the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. We very much value the time that we have with this committee to share the progress of Economic Development Winnipeg and Tourism Winnipeg's work to grow the city's economy. We very much look forward to the conversation today. Today's presentation covers key highlights from Q3 and Q4 of 2024, while also addressing the broader context we're operating in. Economic uncertainty, shifting market conditions, and the need for strategic investment in tourism and our collective competitiveness. As always, this work aligns with our quarterly published impact reports, which offer a deeper look at how EDW and Tourism Winnipeg are helping drive growth and resilience across Winnipeg's economy. And those should have been provided in advance to the committee. We've designed these updates not just to inform, but to bring you along in the momentum that we're building for Winnipeg. Momentum that's critical as we look ahead to some major opportunities in 2025. As one of our 2 government shareholders, your input is always appreciated, and we want to ensure these updates continue to be valuable and relevant to this committee. As always, I'll wrap up with some time for an open 2-way conversation and an opportunity to pose some questions, and look forward to that. I want to begin by acknowledging the moment that we're in. Winnipeg is at an economic crossroads. That's how we've been framing this year. And it's a message that we've heard echoed across our community. Over the past few months, we've held roundtable discussions with business leaders, investors, tourism partners, and key stakeholders to better understand how they're navigating the current climate. What we're hearing is clear. Momentum feels uncertain. Businesses are facing real pressure, especially around tariffs and international trade, and they're making tough decisions about where, if, and how they invest in our city. At the same time, we're hearing cautious optimism. There's still a strong belief in Winnipeg's potential if we make the right moves and keep investing in our competitiveness. At EDW, we see our role as aligning that momentum through investment, tourism, and talent, and ensuring that we're all pulling in the same direction. But we can't do that alone. And that's why conversations like this one are so critically important. So before we dive deeper into the big picture and where we need to go from here, I want to briefly ground us in some of our progress made over the last 2 quarters of 2024 as part of our commitment to provide regular updates to the city. Here's a high-level snapshot of some of our activities and successes from Q3 and Q4. And you can read more about the broader scope of our impacts in the quarterly impact reports that were sent as part of your pre-read. On the business investment side, one key measure of success in our business retention and expansion process is securing economic outcomes facilitated, or EOFs, essentially success stories for the work that we do on the investment side. These EOFs are the ultimate validation of the value we provide through our services to business. And we achieve these only when a client themselves signs a yes letter, when the client, the business, says, yes, Winnipeg and EDW have assisted them meaningfully in their expansion or investment. These letters document key project data, as well as ways in which the team has and continues to support the client through to the project's completion. So in Q3 and Q4 of 2024, EDW secured 5 EOFs, resulting in more than $106 million in capital investment in the city and supporting the creation of 264 net new jobs right here in Winnipeg. I'll highlight one of these investment success stories in a moment. On the tourism side, we saw major business event and sport and special event wins as well. The Great Outdoors Comedy Festival drew 22,000 people and generated $6.2 million in economic impact, far surpassing expectations of an event that was new to our jurisdiction. We also secured the 2026 World Indigenous Business Forum, an incredible opportunity to showcase Winnipeg on a global stage. And my colleague, Natalie Thiessen, Vice President of Tourism, will spotlight this one a little bit further in a moment. We closed the year with $51.8 million total indirect in 3 years, through our work attracting events and conferences to the city. From a recognition perspective, EDW was again named one of Site Selection Magazine's, or Winnipeg was again named one of Site Selection Magazine's top locations for investment in Canada. And our organization also received the Maple Technology Trailblazer Award for our work on the Work in Manitoba platform in the talent space. Capitalizing on Winnipeg's growing creative industries and competitive tax credits, we launched our 2024 digital marketing campaign to showcase the city's competitive tax incentives and highlight Winnipeg as an ideal location for investment for companies in the film, gaming, and interactive digital media industries. This particular campaign targeted key decision makers, including C-suite executives in the film, video game, animation, and visual FX subsectors in major creative hubs such as Los Angeles, California, San Francisco Bay Area, and Montreal. The 2024 year-end campaign earned $1.7 million plus in impressions, which is tremendous and a very efficient use of our dollars. As mentioned, I want to dive a little bit deeper into one of our investment success stories. Fast Freight Group, a leading provider of end-to-end supply chain solutions, is expanding its presence in Winnipeg with the support of Centerport Canada Rail Park by building a new facility on 25 acres at Centerport. This development represents a $55 million capital investment and will create 150 new full-time positions in the region. Fast Freight has grown from an LTL and intermodal carrier into a diverse group of companies, offering a full suite of transportation services across Canada and the US, including logistics, cross-border, LTL and FTL, warehousing, distribution, and final mile solutions. Our team supported Fast Freight throughout their expansion journey, and we're proud of this example as well as others that we've brought to bear. The World Indigenous Business Forum. This is a tremendously exciting one, particularly as we advance on our collective road of economic reconciliation, and also recognizing the tremendous role that our Indigenous community can play in driving economic development in our city and in our province. I mentioned the World Indigenous Business Forum as a big win for our tourism team. I want to dive a bit deeper into this one today. In our impact report, we do a quarterly deep dive into an area to focus on for our organization. And so in that document, Q3, we looked at the world of business events and what went into securing the World Indigenous Business Forum. Really encourage you to review some of that additional detail. But in 2026, Winnipeg will welcome the World Indigenous Business Forum for the first time with an estimated 1,000 delegates to the city. This event highlights our community's leadership in Indigenous business and culture. This landmark achievement didn't happen overnight. It was a result of years of relationship building, planning, and shared vision among local leaders, Indigenous organizations, and government officials. The process of securing the World Indigenous Business Forum also involves strategic coordination with local and national government entities, Indigenous organizations, and various stakeholders. From the Mayor of Winnipeg to Indigenous Tourism Canada, the letters of support made a significant difference in our ability to win and secure this event. The World Indigenous Business Forum will help foster deeper relationships and understanding around Indigenous culture and business, creating a legacy in this city and beyond. The forum is about more than just business. It's about truth and reconciliation and about showing the world how Indigenous communities are and can thrive. In Q4, a group, including representatives from Economic Development Winnipeg, including board member Dennis Michis, Andrew Carrier, Vice President of the Manitoba Métis Federation, and Gord Bluesky, Chief of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, traveled to Albuquerque, New Mexico to share the announcement that we would be the next host city. This collaborative effort underscores Winnipeg's commitment to advancing Indigenous economic opportunities and global engagement. We anticipate that the event will generate an economic impact of $3.1 million, create opportunities for the local economy, and highlight Winnipeg's leadership on the world stage. Our Tourism Winnipeg team was there from start to finish to land this event, and I encourage you again to read more about it in the Q3 impact report from last year. While these highlights are worth celebrating, we also know that the environment around us is shifting essentially daily. If we want to maintain the momentum that we're generating here and continue to grow it, we need to meet the moment we're in and ensure that Winnipeg is a more competitive city moving forward. Strengthening our competitiveness is paramount to making it easier for businesses to choose Winnipeg, to grow here, and to succeed in their investments. As I mentioned earlier, we're at a critical juncture. And while the progress I'm about to share reflects the momentum we built in Q3 and Q4 of last year, the broader context we're operating in today is shifting fast. Tariff threats, changes to Canada-US trade relations are all creating instability. Businesses are navigating cost pressures, reassessing plans, and being more cautious with long-term investments. To better understand these concerns and identify what's needed, we've held roundtable discussions with leaders across the business and tourism sectors, including some targeted meetings in the tech and advanced manufacturing sectors. What we heard was that the business community is looking for clarity, stability, and coordinated action by all of us in this space. And that's why we're working closely with partners at the city, provincial, and federal levels, and with Indigenous governments to ensure Winnipeg's needs are represented in ongoing trade and investment conversations. I sit on the Premier's Council on U.S. Relations, and I've been bringing a lot of those concerns and areas of opportunity to that table. But now more than ever, we need your support at the city level as well. Because while momentum has been building, it won't sustain itself without intention. And Winnipeg, in our view, needs to meet this moment to stay competitive. To ground those broader themes in a local context, I want to take a moment to highlight what we're hearing directly from Winnipeg's business and tourism communities for consideration in the decisions that you make every day. As mentioned, between January and March, we hosted those roundtables with investors, sector leaders, key partners, including targeted sessions with tech and advanced manufacturing sectors. We also have advice through our Indigenous Advisory Council, chaired by Dennis Michis. These weren't just one-off conversations, they were focused discussions designed to surface practical, honest feedback to help guide our response. So here's a little bit about what we heard. Tariffs are creating real uncertainty. Businesses are delaying investment decisions because the landscape is shifting under their feet. Supply chain issues, rising costs, many linked to procurement complexity, as well as shifting tariff environment, are adding new pressures. Talent shortages and retention continue to affect nearly every sector. That's been further impacted by changes to immigration quotas federally, as I'm sure you're aware. On the tourism side, U.S. visitation is showing signs of softening, concern for us, so we can speak to when Natalie steps in as well. And there's concern that Winnipeg may lose ground to more visible or better resource destinations that are all investing in their own competitiveness to meet this moment in their own way. And across the board, there's a call for greater clarity, coordination, and support from all levels of government. This feedback has been essential in shaping how we move forward. You'll see how we've translated those insights into action in the next few slides, starting with how EDW itself is evolving to meet this moment. To stay competitive, we just can't ask others to evolve. We need to start where we stand. We need to evolve too. That's why EDW is stepping into a new chapter. We're aligning tourism and economic development under a unified strategy that's currently in development, a first for our organization. This multi-year strategic plan will guide how we attract investment, visitors, and talent to grow the local economy. But more importantly, it's about how we build partnerships, communicate value, and drive long-term prosperity. We're also launching a refreshed corporate partnerships program, not just to secure financial support, but to engage strategic partners in our business community who want to join us in our mission to make Winnipeg a better place to live, work, visit, and invest. To reflect this shift, we're refreshing our corporate brand and narrative that speaks to our role as one unified agency driving growth for Winnipeg, aligning much more closely moving forward with our place brand. All of this will culminate together and in unison in a signature event in October, where we'll unveil our strategy and bring together government, industry, and community leaders to launch this next chapter. And as we evolve how we operate and engage, we're also rethinking how we promote Winnipeg as a destination, which is why, alongside this work that I just mentioned, we're developing a refreshed leisure marketing strategy, because a competitive tourism brand is a key piece of Winnipeg's economic future. I'd now like to invite my colleague, Natalie Thiessen, VP Tourism at EDW, to share more about this plan and the importance related to the economic impact of tourism.
Thanks, Brian. So because one of our most powerful and sometimes under-recognized economic drivers is tourism, in 2024 alone, tourism generated $1.1 billion in tourism spend in Winnipeg. It fuels restaurants, hotels, supports jobs, drives events, and influences how people really perceive our city. But we're not immune to global shifts. US arrivals to Canada, as Ryan alluded to, dropped 10.9% in February, and early signs of volatility affecting cross-border travel, which represents about currently 25% of visitor expenditures to Winnipeg. That's why we're investing in a new leisure strategy grounded in data. We've done the research. We know what motivates travelers and what they think about Winnipeg. And now we're using those insights to identify our priority markets and target segments. The next steps, determine Winnipeg's positioning and the investment required to grow our leisure visitor economy. Now, that investment won't happen in isolation. It will require support from all levels of government and partners aligned with the long game. Our middle child campaign, as Councillor Barati alluded to, is a great example how we're staying nimble, launching a timely, creative initiative that breaks through the noise on a string shoe budget. You may have already seen some media coverage teasing the campaign while officially launching this May. It leans into Winnipeg's underdog identity in a clever way designed to boost domestic tourism and spark national conversation and encourage Canadians in the moments in time that we're in to consider their summer vacation plans here. It also shows what's possible with limited resources and fast thinking and agility, how we can punch above our weight and stay competitive even without the same funding other cities receive. We'll have a full recap on its performance at our next meeting, but it's already generating interest and attention. But campaigns like that are only part of the picture. If we want to compete with other Canadian cities in an already highly competitive space, sustain investment, bold thinking, and stronger collaboration. This strategy aligns with Destination Canada, the National Tourism Board, and Travel Manitoba, ensuring we're not just moving in sync. Now let's talk why the leisure tourism market matters so much. The slide highlights the diverse reasons visitors come to Winnipeg. Importantly, a full 25% of them are here for leisure. That includes family vacations, weekend getaways, or exploring local attraction. These visits represents net new dollars flowing into our economy, money spent in hotels, small gift shops, businesses in our downtown that wouldn't be here otherwise. That 25% is a significant slice of the pie. And it's not just about spending. Leisure tourism supports local jobs, generates tax revenue, and helps elevate our city's profile as a destination. Even those coming to visit friends and relatives, another major category, often engage in leisure activities while they're here, so that audience contributes to that market too. Now, here's an additional insight that helps inform our current strategy. In a recent Probe Research Omnibus survey commissioned by Economic Development Winnipeg, we asked Winnipeggers how they feel about welcoming American visitors. The results were encouraging. 86% of respondents agreed that despite ongoing trade tensions, we should continue to warmly welcome our visitors from the US. That's particularly noteworthy when compared to broader national trends. Recent industry research really suggests that Canadians in general are beginning to favor domestic and overseas visitors over those from the US. So it's heartening to see Winnipeggers bucking that trend, staying true to friendly Manitoba, the roots that we know are prairie hospitality, and embracing our neighbors with open arms. This kind of local sentiment is valuable to our teams. It's helping shape the direction of our marketing campaigns and informing who we target and when. In short, leisure tourism isn't just a nice to have, it's an engine for economic growth, cultural vibrancy, city building, and also city pride. So we've talked a lot about our multi-year strategy, leisure strategy, and the need for long-term investment. But we're not just planning for the future. The spotlight's already here. The Winnipeg Jets playoff run in just 2 days bring fans, visitors, and national attention to our city. Economic Development Winnipeg is proud to support the 2025 Whiteout Street Parties through the administration of the City of Winnipeg Special Event Tourism Fund, which is contributing up to $90,000 to this year's events. The fund, made possible by revenues from the City of Winnipeg's visitor-generated accommodation tax, is designed to support events that embrace the city's tourism profile and drive visitation. The Whiteout Street Parties are more than just a celebration of playoffs hockey. They're a powerful platform to showcase Winnipeg to a national audience. With the Winnipeg Jets at the top of their game, there's no better time to tell our city's story and to put Winnipeg in the spotlight. Part of Economic Development Winnipeg's mandate is to manage the Winnipeg brand and to position the city as an attractive destination to live, work, and visit. The Jets playoff run will attract more attention to the city, and we want to leverage that opportunity to tell this Winnipeg story we want them to hear. This year, EDW is working with a partnership with True North to amplify what makes this event so special and share the Winnipeg story with a targeted content creator and influencer campaign. Our role is to ensure Winnipeg and its vibrant Whiteout Street Parties are a compelling showcase for potential visitors, talent, and businesses across Canada and beyond. Our travel media team has been hard at work developing customized itineraries for 11 content creators who will begin arriving tomorrow. This visit, centered around experiencing a game, the Associated Street Party, will help amplify Winnipeg's story across social and digital platforms. Through authentic first-hand content shared on their social media platforms, they'll showcase that Winnipeg is not only a premier destination for sports getaways, but a vibrant city full of amenities, cultural gems, world-class attractions, and unique experiences that appeal to a wide range of travelers. This summer, we'll host CBL championships, and this fall, of course, the 112th Grey Cup will once again showcase Winnipeg as a top-tier sports destination. In a few weeks, we will welcome more than 1,500 delegates and global tour operators that will arrive for Rendezvous Canada, our biggest opportunity this year to making a lasting impression on the international travel trade industry. This was last hosted in Winnipeg in 2010. Think back to our city at that moment. This is an incredible opportunity. An event is expected to generate 5.3 million in direct economic impact, $90 million of business across tourism professionals across the country. This gets booked over the course of those 4 days. This is the Super Bowl of events for Canadian tourism industry. This is the opportunity to welcome the world to Winnipeg. 22 countries, 1,500 delegates, 9 hotels, 400 tour operators, co-hosted by ourselves and Travel Manitoba, 11 familiarization tours, 800 delegates on 22 city tours, and 300 volunteers from our tourism industry. These aren't just big events, they're economic drivers and magnets and brand builders for our city. So I'm going to pass it back to Ryan.
Thanks, Nellie. Really pleased to know that you joined us today. I would like to continue to invite some of my executive colleagues to join to ensure you have a spotlight on different aspects and elements of what we do at EDW and ensure that we've got all the best capacity to answer any questions that you have in terms of the breadth and scope of our work. So really appreciate you doing that, Nellie. These aren't just big events, as Natalie said. Tourism and these events are huge economic drivers. And we've seen what's possible when the city steps up. Did you do this part already? You did. I apologize. The interlocation of our notes here. As we wrap up here, I want to bring us back to where we started. We've talked a bit about momentum. We've talked about how it's building across our economy, some of the changes that are happening in the broader environment, and how we're evolving to meet the moment as an organization, as well as how tourism is one of our most important economic drivers at this time of uncertainty. But momentum needs support. It needs systems that work. It needs intentional investment. And so here's where we ask for your continued partnership. And that starts, frankly, with tackling the barriers that we control right here at home. Some of them probably discussed this morning, right? Which is why we want to revisit a kiosk from our last presentation, first and foremost. The critical role that the city can play in making Winnipeg a more competitive place to do business. We still need the city to enable in-camera briefings to allow us to keep you as council up to speed on potential investments in our jurisdiction that we can only steward under NDA. Major companies and their boards require that confidentiality when they're making high-level investment decisions. Most of these conversations, as I mentioned, are protected by NDAs. And without a formal and confidential mechanism to brief council, it's really difficult for us to keep you up to speed on the decisions that you need to take in support of this critical part of our economy. Other cities have this. Winnipeg needs it as well. The city also, based on everything we hear from businesses, still needs to continue to invest in streamlining zoning, permitting, and clarification of definitions that can create unnecessary uncertainty for the businesses that are looking to invest and expand and develop here. Investment requires certainty. Anytime that there's a bylaw that is ambiguous, anytime that there's a rule that is open to interpretation, it creates uncertainty for business, and it limits our ability to do the work that we do at EDW to attract more investment into the city. We've heard directly from businesses that the development process is unpredictable and time-consuming, that certainty erodes their confidence, uncertainty erodes their confidence. And this is one of the clearest ways that we as a jurisdiction and you as a city can make an immediate impact on our competitiveness. Another way that Winnipeg can compete for major projects is by having land that's ready to go. And we know you've made some strides there, and I want to thank you for that today. It's been a conversation around investment readiness, and that conversation isn't done. There's a lot more work that we all collectively need to do. But we know you've taken steps, and I really do appreciate that and want to acknowledge it today. And if the land isn't ready to go, let's at least facilitate the processes required to make it faster and easier to get there. again, another tangible way to boost our competitiveness, and that it's a shared responsibility, and we'll own our part of it as EPW in partnership with you. Lastly, we need more than ever right now to look at procurement, and we need to buy local where we can. Our governments at all levels, including Indigenous, have a tremendous opportunity to have an impact here. With US tariffs threatening market access and livelihoods, now's the time to double down on procurement and local procurement. Some of these businesses it could be existentially impactful to their future if they can secure a contract with the city of Winnipeg that they didn't have previously. So, Winnipeg companies, particularly some in the tech sector, are ready to meet municipal needs. We provided a list of local technology companies to the city of Winnipeg a few weeks ago that outlined specifically how each of them could meet some of the city's needs in terms of technology related to traffic control and other elements. We did the same thing with the province of Manitoba. We've been sitting down with deputy ministers at the provincial level to advance that conversation. We've been making connections to those technology companies. Apart from confirmation of reception of some of the procurement opportunities that we have provided, we haven't had that further conversation with the city of Winnipeg. I want to flag that as a direct opportunity that we can continue to advance on together, not just in the technology sector, but in other areas related to recognize the city doesn't procure everything. Nor can it, but we think that there's a tremendous opportunity here as well, and we're here to help make those connections to local businesses. Prioritizing local procurement strengthens our economy, supports job growth, and also builds long-term resilience for our economy. So let's meet this moment together. A few years ago, I will never forget, you asked me to bring to you concrete things that City Council can do. You may live to regret it, guys, but this is the concrete things that the city of Winnipeg can do to help advance our economy, both on the business investment side as well as tourism and other areas. So I have three specific asks for you today, and happy to discuss any others that we see later. First and foremost, showcasing the city for Rendezvous Canada 2025. As Natalie mentioned, and beyond. This is a critically important showcase that only comes by once every 15 years. And we really appreciate your support. You have been supportive of us in terms of beautification of the city, some early cleanup. But whatever you can do, recognizing that this showcase is upcoming, we very much appreciate it. There are going to be councillors and mayor attending and invited to different events as well. I really encourage you to take part in that and be the ambassadors that we know you are for the city.
What are the exact dates again?
May 26th to 30th.
Conflicts with a lot of us will be at FCM in Ottawa, I know. But
Yeah. I will be.
Anybody either?
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Go for lunch.
Because I know the mayor, I think, is at FCM, and so
Yes, yeah.
The
The deputy mayor will be here though.
We'll be there for Monday.
we'll be there for the Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I really appreciate those of you that are still here. Perhaps stepping in. It is. Thank you for that recognition. Also, this opportunity to invest in Winnipeg's competitiveness, and there's a few ways that we are doing it, but we also need to improve. Investment readiness is critically important, and we've been working with the province as well, looking at how other jurisdictions benchmark their investment competitiveness. And I know there's been very active discussion, and I won't say anything too definitive with the province, but around like an investment readiness certification program that we could actually establish potentially as a community. It may take some time for us to get that in place, but these are some examples of the opportunity, as well as continuing the steps that you've already been taking around investing in the readiness of lands from an infrastructure perspective. I wrote here, establish the benchmark to make the plan. The mayor and I have had several conversations. We have businesses constantly saying, this investment is so much easier in the city of Calgary when we build there, or the city of Edmonton, or other jurisdictions in our competitive set. And so the mayor was asking some really good questions, and I appreciate it around what specifically, where is Calgary doing better? what I'd like to propose today and propose to take back with the administration to have a conversation is for us to actually look to meaningfully benchmark our competitiveness in key areas like what we've been talking about today, related to timelines, permits, other things, against other cities in our our competitive set, which would include Calgary and Edmonton. It doesn't need to be a huge group, but what we would take from the business community's feedback to us is what are those cities where you feel like things are a lot easier? And for us to lean in a little bit.
Pause you for 1 second, you're right. Are you aware that right now, using some of our half money, we've got, Lisa Finnegan, who's our head of the concierge program. She's working with consultants from KPMG to look at that whole end-to-end process. Has your organization plugged into that?
We're aware of it.
Started, have they not talked to you yet?
We haven't been engaged. We are aware of it.
Okay.
And in part, seeing that momentum was one of the, it's great, but it's focused. There's maybe other areas that we can look at beyond, right? In terms that are less specifically aligned with the permitting process that also could enhance our competitiveness. So the opportunity to build maybe around that, whether it's with KPMG or otherwise, but with engagement from our team, I think could be one way that we could really benchmark ourselves and identify, okay, now let's establish a work plan on how we truly focus on those areas where we could enhance that competitiveness. So I leave that here for you today for just your consideration. We'll continue conversations behind the scenes, just assuming you're supportive, but thank you, Chair. And third, advancing tourism and enabling assets. Investment in the tourism industry is critically important for our competitiveness in that space as well. We've been actively involved with other council colleagues and city counterparts with the proposed expansion of Thermea, which is a tourism asset in our jurisdiction, and the opportunity to enhance that asset, I think, deserves meaningful attention. And so we're working to help facilitate that in partnership with colleagues at the city. I would also flag to you the importance of the Sutton Place Hotel, the development that has been proposed for some time adjacent to the convention center. We think it's a tremendously important asset for us to fully unlock the potential of our city as a host of major events and conferences, and certainly to ensure that the business model of the convention center is able to continue as planned. And so that's a really important project. We're working with the Sutton Place team now as well to help advance that in partnership with Matt Dryberg and others, and just want to make sure that stays top of mind for yourselves as well, because we think it's critically important for our city moving forward. And then another area of tourism that is very high potential, which is around, Indigenous tourism, Indigenous product development. Now, we would look to Indigenous Tourism Manitoba to lead a lot of that, but we are here as a support as an agency as well. And certain of those may require city and council support and certainly recognition of the important role that they play. And certainly last but not least, support for UW's multi-year strategy. We're tremendously excited. We've been working incredibly hard. Our team's been nonstop putting the pieces together in the ways that I articulated earlier around our corporate partnerships program, our rebranding, our multi-year strategy. And it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna give us a North Star. We'll bring it back here as well to obviously share it with you and talk to you about it, but it's also gonna need some support from you if we're gonna truly realize its full potential. And so that's another area where we look forward to working with you. With that, I'll thank you and open the floor to any questions you might have for myself or for Natalie.
Who would like to start? I'll start, I guess. Has there been any early talk about industry looking at finding ways to do final mile completion or it used to be called nearshoring, to do final production here, like a small component of something, say, needs to be tariffed, it's coming in from the States, produce the rest of it here. For me, one piece that we often hear about is our water meters. We're looking at a 9-figure project. A good chunk of that is actually the meters themselves. The supplier we've been dealing with is predominantly American. If there's other people making water meters, could you do 80% local content, maybe 20% of it has to come from the States, and only that portion ends up getting tariffed? Is there, New Flyer, we've heard, has added their final steps. They announced it before the tariffs, luckily last fall, and they're ramping up already, but final production of buses being done here instead of Crookston. Like right now, buses for the Canadian market were being completed in Crookston. Now they're going to be able to do them in Transcona. One less cross of the border, maybe one, some tariff savings there. Has there been?
Yes, there have been. There's a lot of work going on, and I really appreciate that example of the water meters. Please reach out to us on any of those things. If we can't help, we'll simply say that we can't, but it never hurts to ask. We're working actively with the business community around the potential capacity that we have around local procurement. But even if it's not Winnipeg local or Manitoba local, buying Canadian is still really important. We have very close relationships with all of our economic development agencies across Canada. We're all working on this together. And if you can't find all or components of, for example, the water meter technology that you need, let's work together to identify it so that we're not sourcing it necessarily from the US. And at minimum, we're contributing to Canada. And we'd be happy to talk about anything on your list at any time. So welcome that.
Encourage them to, bring up production here, and then they can sell more to the Canadian market.
That's exactly it.
US visitation. Again, we've got all sorts of neat tourism attractions that, hopefully will draw Americans and people, Grand Forks, Fargo, into the United States. Have we considered the reverse of what I think used to be the trend? Cross-border shopping. With new tariffs on whatever they're importing, Chinese-made goods have a 150% tariff on them. A trip to Dollar Tree up here might be a very compelling visitation because you get your $800 personal exemption. I'm thinking more of the example of Costco. I mean, there are so many goods now at Costco that are materially cheaper just due to marketing reasons up here at Canadian Costco versus down in West Fargo. Like 30-40% cheaper. You come for a weekend, fill up the car with stuff, you save $100-500. That easily pays for your hotel and a couple of your meals. And then you have money to go to the Leaf and the Assiniboine Park and the WAG and you name it in Winnipeg. I always think there's going to be, if not now, very near term, a competitive advantage for trying to sell Americans on cross-border shopping, just as a thought. Maybe try to get up to the microphone a little bit. Or maybe, or you can move up to like that. Can be is sparked up too. But yeah.
Yeah, appreciate sort of the comment. I think we've monitored, the dollar over the years, and I think we're in a different moment in time. I think the dollar is a factor and also the sentiment. And I think the figure that I shared, I think shopping's always been one of the motivations, not just from US travel. As of our US visitor, their motivation to come and visit based on our recent research has really been around our arts and culture or our proximity to sort of outdoor exploring. And that would, you think that also our access gateway to the north and access to parks and fish hunt market. And so majority of those visitors are spending 2-3 nights plus in Winnipeg. So I think there's definitely a value piece of coming from across the border. I think what we're very concerned or monitoring very closely was the sentiment around being welcomed in Canada. And I think that stat that I shared with you is we're very pleased to see that percentage and confident because anecdotally, as starting in January, we were receiving emails around American visitors planning their summer vacation and concerned about being welcomed in here. So I think those are all things as part of our consideration in our campaign that we are going to have in market, summer campaign in market that we'll monitor.
Cool. Councilor Ellico?
Just flippantly, on that comment about American feeling welcome, I was at one of the Jets games recently, and it was really, I was proud to see it was One Love banner, the American flag and the Canadian flag together. And it was actually, I thought it was a really warm way to say that we are Canadian. We may not be too happy with some things happening over there right now, but we are type of people that we don't hold against all the people. Because there's some things that we don't like too much. So I don't know, reaching out with True North, maybe we have this big opportunity coming up. We're going to be playing St. Louis, and I prefer that than the booze. So reaching out to True North to see if we can make that probably a little more campaigny, I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great flag, and I really appreciate you mentioning it. I think We've all been proud, I think, by our local community's differentiation between what's happening with the US administration versus the long-term, strong, close relationship we have with the American people. And that's going to continue. And we need to be nuanced in how we approach this. But the opportunity to reinforce that messaging through the White House street parties could certainly be an opportunity. I know there's been a little bit of just consideration around, does it politicize a little bit, you know? So there's been conversations, but I do appreciate the flag and we're looking to the street parties wherever we can align with our mandate to showcase the city in key ways. We're working very closely on all of that.
Any questions, Councilor Lukes?
I guess, so your main point person is Mr. Dryberg, correct? Is that your main
Correct.
point person in the city?
Yeah.
So like for an example here, showcase the city for rendezvous. Okay.
Yeah, Kenny
On
Brooks.
on the event side, I would say not that we don't have interactions with Matt, but on a city side, on Kenny Boyce and his team on most major events coming to the city, we're in lockstep.
Right, okay, okay. I'm just, thinking, like, we're doing the big scrub of the city, the big clean of the
Yes.
city, right?
Yes.
But if we, well, it is.
It is, I know you've heard.
What's going on? These sites that you're going to, maybe they get scrubbed up sooner or something, right? Cleaned up sooner or whatever, like.
And
so-
those are in motion
Okay.
based on the support from previous conversations here.
Okay.
So we are
Thank
we
you.
are
Okay,
appreciative and confident of what's
Okay.
in progress, and any of you that are here, we'd love to have you walk the show floor and attend some of our events.
right. And then I really like this idea about benchmarking because it's measurable and it's accountable. So yes, we have KPMG working on the end-to-end, but that's really like the permitting and all that. But to your point, like I have a lot of residents that I know have moved away. I hear a lot of reasons why they've moved away, right? And it's other benchmarking activities. So I really think that's a great idea and to move forward on that. That I'm really, really supportive of that. And then the multi-year strategy, I think that's great. Like, I'm very excited to hear what you come up with for the multi-year strategy. So that's good. And then I'm just looking over what the city can do, right? So, well, I guess then we just continue talking to Matt over there in camera briefings, right? Prioritizing local procurement, that's interesting because we're sort of tied, I think, to some national or international global, we have to, not that anyone seems to be recognizing trade rules anymore, but yeah, I hear you on that one. It's good that you're making that list. That's really good. Yeah, no, this is great. Like I'll send out an email that all counselors watch this video and just, but it's really good, right? Like, this is really important. When you get the funding from the, what's the fund called? The tax fund that. Special events fund. Does it give a breakdown of where it comes from, like hotels and, like, I'm just curious about the short-term rentals.
Oh, the broader accommodation tax.
The accommodation
Yeah.
tax, yes. Does it give a breakdown? Do you get a breakdown on it?
We get a bit of a breakdown.
In terms of what we get from sort of taxation from the city, it's not a breakdown of like hotels versus short-term rental.
Right,
We get a breakdown per different areas of the city where the mapping of hotels are.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have by sort of
Right.
by word probably, or
Right.
but not by breakdown of short-term rentals.
Right, because we, I don't know, well, we've implemented that in the last year, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see, we have some areas of the city that are very heavy with short-term rentals that are contributing to this, so maybe I'll speak with Mr. Driver about that, understand that a bit better. Yeah, that's great. I don't have any more questions. I really appreciate this.
Ready to move it as to receive his information?
Sure, I'll make a motion to receive this information.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your
Thank you. And just if you need any activity from
All in favor?
counselors for the May, for when rendezvous here, give people a heads up because,
The invite's coming in the next few days.
okay,
Okay.
that's good. Because a bunch are going away, but a bunch aren't, so, okay, thank you.
Okay. Board number 2, Winnipeg Police Board, 2024 fourth quarter budget update.
Morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Jeff Wiggett. I'm the secretary to the Winnipeg Police Board and their executive director.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here actually with respect to item number 2, and I will be here for item number 3 as well on behalf of the police service. Item number 2 on your agenda this morning is the Winnipeg Police Board's 2024 fourth quarter budget update. Recognizing that we're now well into April, I think this will probably be brief from my end. At least the board is happy to report that we came in under budget by about 2.25% last year, so about $8,700 returned to the city's funds. I'm happy to go line by line. I understand that if you're looking at the report on your agenda, there's some differences between the budgeted amounts and actuals that on their face may look a little strange. Most of that is to do with the sort of alignment between the city's prescribed budget lines and the sort of board's business and requirements that it has to fulfill under provincial legislation. Again, happy to answer any questions, but I think the highlight here is that we were under.
Yeah.
I have no questions.
We like that.
I'll move to receive it as information.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Number 3, Winnipeg Police Service 2024 fourth quarter financial report.
Yes, so this is the year-end financial report for 2024 for the Winnipeg Police Service. Again, I am here on behalf of the service to present this, given the board's governance role in allocating and expenditure management of the police services budget. You have the report there in your agenda as it notes on page 9, I believe it is, for the period ending December 31st, 2024. Expenses exceeded the adopted budget by $12.1 million. However, those expenditures were offset by increased revenues related to police services, particularly related to the hiring of special duty officers, revenue through traffic enforcement and government grants. Expenditure management target of $7 million was met primarily through a combination of savings related to overtime salary and accommodations, as well as those increased in revenues. And so on whole for the year, the service was under budget by $4.7 million.
Go. In the block.
That's good.
Somebody want to move this report? Thank you,
I'll
Councilor
move
Lewis.
the report to receive it as
Okay, all's in favor?
information.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's better news.
I'll get on the bus. Time for some transit reports.
Transit crews here.
Okay, so from Transit today, we have with us Jess Crowder, Manager of Asset Management, Lori Fisher, Manager of Finance, and Aaron Cook, who's the Project Manager.
Okay, we're starting with the North Garage Replacement Project.
Good morning, everybody. So this is quarterly project status report number 7 for North Garage Replacement Project for the period ending January 31st, 2025. Project is on schedule and on budget. As of the end of January, we were approximately 44% complete on the schedule and 6.5% adopted budget spent. Jumping into the design phase components, we are working still with our design team, stakeholders, other city departments and provincial agencies on a detailed design that will remain within the approved $200 million budget. Planning to include at this time a facility of about 285,000 square feet, LEED Silver certification, storage for about 207 40-foot equivalent buses. 6 maintenance and repair bays, net zero carbon ready facility, administration space, service bays, walk tracks for cleaning of the buses, electrical substation, chargers and dispensers for 24 battery electric buses, visitor and staff parking, and a bus loop for future bus routes. Talked about the operational impacts that this reduction and deferral of scope will result in running out of space in the facility in 8 to 10 years, deferring purchase of articulating buses, and less ability to repair buses at this new facility. We've also looked at repurposing some space at our existing Fort Rouge garage to make 4 repair bays for 60-foot buses. And we're also looking at a facility assessment of the existing North Garage, dependent on how the construction tender plays out. We will look to potentially utilize some space there. We had a tender for goods for long lead items like electrical transformers and switch gear. That's now closed. We're in the process of evaluating that. And we have completed a load study with Manitoba Hydro, so work is underway to bring power to the site. There's no changes in terms of contracts or schedules. We do have one new risk item added to table 3, which is impact on the project from tariffs between the US and Canada. So we're continuing to monitor that, try to mitigate it within the project to the degree that we can. Financially, at the end of January, we had submitted 7 claims to the province for payment totaling just over $3.1 million and have received 1.948. Looking at Appendix B, briefly, we've had costs to the end of January in engineering design, another of 4.764 million, land acquisition of 7.784 million, interest and overhead costs. For that total of $13 million and 6.5% of the budget. Going back to the main report. We have no update on property acquisition. That's still ongoing. Stakeholder engagement, we are looking to do a virtual information session once we get 100% design and finished construction bid. We have done some prep work on the property, some removal of trees and brush to get it ready for the construction. And as I mentioned, we had that long lead tender, and we are right now in the tender period for the construction. That was posted on February 28th. Questions?
Are new buses that much higher than old ones that they're not fitting in the Main Street garage?
The trend now with new buses is a lot more equipment is mounted on the roof. So I don't know what the difference in actual numbers is.
So it's a combination. So our old buses didn't have air conditioner units, period. So they were quite a bit shorter. So we have, yeah, but it's about right now it's between a battery electric bus is 4 inches taller than a diesel bus and a hydrogen bus is 6 inches taller. So that's.
But already, like our current air conditioner top buses, newest ones aren't fitting in, Excelsiors aren't fitting in.
No, so we only put our older buses in that garage currently that don't have the air conditioning units.
Are there models that we could be buying that aren't that tall?
No, all of the new buses are at least as tall as the ones that we're currently buying.
Curious. And the entirety of the garage can't accommodate those, not parts of it that can, or a certain number.
I don't know if we've retrofitted any of the doors in that. They'd have to confirm that.
Is it close? Sorry?
We are even having that challenge in our dyno room this week that we discovered that our new buses, we have to resize doors. So some of the doors at North Garage may have already been renovated, but I'm not sure.
Something we could look at if need be to use that facility.
Like how close is it? Like, is it foot off, or is it gonna be, inches, or how material is the potential change?
It's material in the fact we have to change the doors, make structural changes to the opening.
But the roofs?
Roof is a different issue, but that'd be.
More complicated, I'm suggesting, yeah. Okay. So we prepared to move this one. So in favor, opposed, carried. Number 5, transition to ZEB.
All right, so quarterly project status report number 7 as well, same period of time ended January 31st, 2025. Project is on schedule and on budgets, approximately 41% schedule complete and 24% of the budget spent. Going into the components of the project, so rolling stock for buses. Under the diesel contracts, we have a first extension with New Flyer that all 38 buses have been received and are now in service. Second extension of 45 buses with New Flyer is underway. We had expected the last bus to be delivered by the end of March. We have 6 remaining to be delivered as of this point in time. For zero emission buses, our original contract with New Flyer for 8 battery electric and 8 hydrogen. At the end of January, we had received 1 hydrogen bus. We now have 6 at this point on our site. And we are expecting the first 2 battery electric buses potentially as early as before the end of this month. First extension for additional zero emission buses is 24 battery electric buses with New Flyer. Those are going to be, as you mentioned earlier, built here. That'll be their first all Canadian, all Winnipeg battery electric bus build. So that's anticipated to start in fall. Charging infrastructure, we have substantially completed the charging infrastructure in our branding garage. However, we can't commission those chargers until we receive those battery electric buses I just mentioned. So we're waiting on those. Well, phase 2 for that charging, we're now underway with total completion projected for Q3 of this year. Hydrogen fueling station, we are in design and have material being pulled together for that station construction. We are looking at equipment being delivered to site in June and then construction of the site or the station shortly thereafter. So we're working on temporary supply being procured through our contractor for the station, to take Zola, along with New Flyer. And then no update on our maintenance grad updates. In terms of risks, have the same new risk in terms of tariffs, so trying to monitor that situation. And then we have another new risk of anticipated production lead times. So lead times for buses are getting longer and longer for various reasons. So the risk here is that we don't receive the bus on site in accordance with our funding agreement by the end of April 2028. So we're looking at either, if that comes to bear, an extension of the dates, or working on New Flyer in the province to understand those delays around having product on site as a condition of the agreement. Financially, at the end of January, we'd submitted 8 claims to the province for a payment of $47.4 million, and we received 25.2 million. Similar, looking at Appendix B, spent to date to the end of January, we'd had some engineering design, $629,000. Construction category of 66.5 million, that is bus purchases, along with some other charger and hydrogen construction, but largely buses, and then internal financing for roughly $67.5 million, 24% of the budget spent. And then under stakeholder engagements, communications, we've been working on communication plans to promote the buses, and we had a media event on February 19th for our arrival of our first hydrogen bus and a new bus brand.
Right. Councilor Lard.
Thank you, the committee and for public service for the report. I'm looking to try and, well, just a few questions, and I know some of them have already been answered, but we're going with, I guess, a vendor that's using methanol to convert it to hydrogen. I understand that the concept of doing electrolysis was cost prohibitive, and I'm looking to basically quantify what is the cost per liter of hydrogen at the end of the day, or like how do we compare this to, like, battery electric's fairly straightforward because we know what the cost of electricity is, but it's not clear to me how much we're paying for the that will come from methanol, that will come from the vendor that we've hired. And I guess the other question is, is it an exclusive agreement with the partner? Do they have rights to sell methanol for the purposes of converting to hydrogen for some time? Is there any detail that can be provided to council and the public on that?
So firstly, I would argue that battery electric is not as straightforward because demand charges make everything complicated with that as well. But it is less or more cost effective for battery electric regardless. We're testing hydrogen fuel cell buses because of needs for longer range, particularly with Arctic buses with the new network. The station that we are buying the equipment. We are the sole owner and operator of that equipment, with the exception of the first year. Hazel is going to be managing the operation of that station. That was to give us enough time to understand what the costs associated with operating the station are, and whether that's something we want to do internally going forward, or whether it's something we're going to continue to outsource. But the station itself is fully owned by the city of Winnipeg. We will be purchasing methanol, much like the city has contracts for methanol for other departments today. So the price of hydrogen will be variable based on the price of methanol. So similar to fuel variation, methanol prices vary. Our anticipated cost for end use at the dispenser, including all costs rolled up, is somewhere between $10 to $14 based on historical prices of methanol in the last 2 years. So it's unknown. I haven't really looked into how carbon tax is impacting methanol prices, so that could change, likely be on the lower end of that than the high end right now. But that's where we're costing. It is still higher than the electrolysis station that we were originally targeting, which was targeting $6 to $8. But the cost difference between the station that we got quoted through the tendering process, there was no way to even make up the difference in the cost of the hydrogen from 6 to 8 to 10 to 12, with the overages of the capital costs of that station.
Okay, is there any detail on that? Outside of conversations that happened with the administration, or are there any publicly available documents? I'm just looking like comparison between the potential electrolysis station built in-house relative to the methanol conversion to hydrogen station, and the $12 to $14 per liter, is that for methanol?
Per kilogram of hydrogen.
Per kilogram of hydrogen
Dispensed.
at the end, okay.
Yeah.
And the report says it was just too much money for electrolysis, but is there, I don't know, a different type of qualifier than it was just too much?
There is substantial information that we could provide you, if I could get that to you at a later date of time. There was communications between Winnipeg Transit and the CFO and the CEO towards this decision at that point, so that information could be provided.
And the reason I'm asking these questions, as you probably know, is that I think the goal is eventually to have a green hydrogen source. If we're going to use methanol, which is not necessarily and probably not green and not really sustainable as being green because of the cost of methanol production. I'd be interested in more details.
Yeah.
How would those be provided to the public and council?
I assume you could reach out to me and I could provide that to you.
Yeah, but I'm looking for a public forum where I can like here now, like in the report that we have here today.
I think we.
I'm concerned about confidentiality and proprietary
We did
information.
speak to it in earlier reports, but to your point, we got to the level of a dollar figure.
Well, orders of magnitude?
The presentation, like the procurement process is closed, so I don't believe we can share. They exceeded the dollar value that was in the procurement, so all tenders were over the $12 million cap that we had in that. But beyond that, I'm not able to share any information.
That was previously disclosed this.
Okay.
And Councillor Shire did, raise concerns.
Yeah, it was Councillor Schreier at the time. Okay, I can look that up.
Yeah.
So we don't know what the cost per kilogram of hydrogen would have been had we constructed the facilities to do electrolysis of water.
Yeah. So
We don't know.
sorry,
Do we know what that number would have been?
the cost of the station or the cost of the hydrogen? That's
The, like, I
I
don't know,
said-
the all-in financing plus. Like, we have a number on.
I mean, the other point to remember was, again, there was the first piece where we were gonna, we're only buying how many hydrogen buses committed so far?
We have the 8 that we have on order right
And that's
now.
all.
That's all that we've committed.
And the point was, this was almost sort of a demonstration, a trial project. And the notion was,
I understand that.
if we ended up going down the hydrogen path, if you will, then a decision would be then made to perhaps do the full on electrolysis and make our own hydrogen effectively. In order.
The station site itself, most of the equipment, like the storage equipment, the dispenser equipment, that's all fully compatible, whether we were making it with methanol or electrolysis. You could technically remove the methanol equipment and replace it with electrolyzer. The footprint is the same. We would have some additional costs associated because methanol does not require a sewage connection. It produces steam, whereas electrolysis system needs both potable water as well as sewage. So there would be some additional construction costs associated with converting this station in the future to electrolysis. But again, this station is designed for 20 to 30 buses at most. Our plan, and which we've stated all along, is that for us to even consider scaling beyond this pilot is we need a source of green hydrogen and liquid hydrogen to be able to consider this technology.
Right.
Both from a cost perspective, and the goal is eventually getting to zero emissions.
So on that, if there were liquid hydrogen available, is that something that is allowable given the contracts that we have?
But there is absolutely no sources.
There's no market, right?
There's no source. Liquid station requires an entirely different set of infrastructure. We have that planned and built into the north garage. We have a footprint assigned for it, or that we could retrofit it if money becomes available. So that is where our next stage of hydrogen would go if we were buying it. But like I said, we are even struggling to get gas supply right now on a temporary basis. There's just not infrastructure for delivered hydrogen in Canada right now.
If there were hydrogen available, could transit buy it?
We
Would
can't,
there be a mechanism in which? clarify?
So the station right now it would also require some retrofits. We could technically not produce the hydrogen and could fill those tanks with delivered supply. There would need to be some modifications to do that, but technically from the storage tanks to the dispenser, we could do that, yes.
Okay. Some people have made the claim that it could be done, like at comparable pricing to.
It's timing wise though, like we had purchased these buses in 2022. And most of the supply that's talking about coming online is not available till 2028 or 2030.
Okay,
So that's what we're looking at, and we're in communications with multiple potential suppliers of hydrogen who are looking at setting up in Manitoba. That they are frequently in communication with us, and we've been monitoring and trying to understand what the timing of that is. And our rollout planning has been aligned with when that supply may come online.
so Councilor Rawadi, thank you for allowing this discussion. Public Service did mention that they may have additional information available. Could we ask them for that?
What information you?
Well,
I mean, again, I don't know if that's really germane. I mean, at this point, the decisions are made, we're doing 8 buses. I mean, if a decision was to be made to procure more hydrogen buses, I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. But I mean, at this point, I mean, I think we're quite committed to the methanol process to prove the performance really of these buses and in our environment and all these other pieces. I don't think, again, if
well, I also
operationally at some point down the road, we could take another look here, but
I also have hopes for
the buses themselves. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, the buses themselves are zero emission, kind of. Well, it's the production of the energy that's not going to be in this case.
But
and again, even the electric buses will still have diesel engines for electric or for heating in the winter and for keeping the batteries working.
Part of my interest is future looking though, Councilor Bawadi, because we know that there's hydrogen diesel hybrid combustion, which we're also tracking. I believe the city of Edmonton's looking into that.
I would suggest maybe, whether it's a community committee or a council asking for a separate report, separate from this report.
Just get the information first and go from there. They're willing to give you all the information.
If you want to keep it if you want it in public forum,
I prefer it in a public forum because then I know that I can refer to it and not get into.
I'd rather not do it through this, but if you really wanted to, we could. I'd rather not do it through the process.
It's not where it's just finance. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Really, I was just gonna caution that this is solely for the capital projects for a quarterly finance update. If you're starting to get more into operations of transit, I would
that's fair.
suggest transit.
It's not USB.
So motion to public works.
Right.
Community committee development works.
Right. Again, this project is defined and the scope is set. I would not support anything to change the current direction and the scope of this one. I understand what you're looking for. I think that's a fair thing to ask Transit to do, but I'd maybe handle that separately. A report that would go through Public Works Committee and
sure
would be my advice.
If there is anything that you can share, I'd be happy to read it.
Okay.
And not refer to it in public. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll move the report.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Laird. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so John Spadell, our corporate controller, is here to help walk through the provincial and federal grant update report.
Thank you, Tracy. I'll now take the committee through the update of the status of City of Winnipeg provincial federal grants for the period ending March 31st, 2025. As normal, the highlighted yellow cells have been updated since the last report. We have updated the format of the report as well too this quarter and would like the committee's input as far as any other suggested changes or enhancements. On page 1 of the report, we focused on just operating funding and have added in 2025 to the table. As you can see that we have a slight overall increase in our funding in 2025 over 2024 of $4.1 million or 1.9%, with the total being at $119,900,000. On the second page, see some more changes. This reflects basically the capital position starting just a little bit down, and we've gone through some like pie charts just to kind of give you that quick visual as far as the status. basically the funding that we're still to receive and breaking out specifically for ISIP and SIP as well too. So you can kind of see the status of that. But we also kept this on page 3. If you move down, we've kept the table so you have all the details associated with the projects for SIP. Just noting on page 3, you'll notice that some of the projects have ISIP beside them. Those are the ones where the provincial government has committed funds for ISIP, but they're using the SIP funding to pay for ISIP.
Can you clarify that?
So out of the $93.9 million that the provincial government has given us for SIP in 2025, there's approximately 45 million of that going into ISIP.
So the province's annual commitment to the city for capital is 93.9 million. So any of their contributions towards other programs like ISIP or CHIF comes from that 93.9 million. It's not net new dollars. It's all part of the total capital commitment, annual capital commitment.
Let me clarify.
Yep.
I made everything like right here. So the province says they're giving us $93 million in capital. But however, we're really not giving $93 million because our commitment to those other programs, we're taking it from the $93 million.
That's right.
So it's $93 million minus whatever else the province decides to take off that list. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And they're deciding what to, so when they do a contribution for a treatment plant or something like that,
Yes.
they're taking it from the existing money we already donated to us.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, so the fourth line on page number 3, you'll see there's $30.3 million.
So that's super sizing. So they go out and do announcements about all this new money they're giving us, but it's not new money, money that they've already given us. And I've heard this before, and I was never exactly sure, but I understand the game is played up there. My question though, right now, quickly, is that $93 million, which is now $40 million, it sounds like. But again, remember the days of, basket funding, the good old days of basket funding. Just give us $93 million, we'll figure out how to spend it. Well, that's obviously not happening anymore.
Good old days.
Yeah, good old. I think actually it lasted 4 hours. Good old days. But so that $93 million, have we already committed some of those funds?
Yeah, so how we're gonna have to phase this out in the next little while is understand the cash flow needs under those, the province's commitment under those programs, so CHIP and ISIP. We'll need to kind of figure out what the cash flow is and if there are remaining amounts from the 93 million, and then work with the budget working group in order to revisit the allocated list that we already have in the budget. And so one option is to replace, so NUPIC as an example has many funding sources, one of which is debt. So do we swap out NUPIC debt for NUPIC grant money and then free up debt capacity for the projects that were previously considered under the basket funding? But I think it's time to kind of step back and look at our capital program generally in light of these alignments.
Not that I don't think the budget working group can handle this information well. But should not that the finance committee have that information rather than the budget working group information does not go public? We don't hear about that stuff. Should that not report come
That's
public?
through EPC ultimately.
Not really, no. Like that detailed report would just stay at the budget working group for their consideration. If I knew it existed, I could ask for it, but I won't. So could that be something we could ask? I'm gonna leave that with Councilor Belwadi right now.
Yeah.
And we'll chat about that after. But I would like to see, if we're getting this bait and switch kind of stance model, what kind of pressures we're facing. And I know that debt is one of the areas that we're looking at using and replacing some old debt with new debt over here and just, A to B, A to A is fine. But it's when it goes A to B, which is a whole bunch of new debt. I know we're all clamoring because we're so broke, which I'm very leery of, is increasing our debt ceiling.
Yes, if it's new debt that is needed, that would have to go to council. So that,
I'll talk
so
to Councilor Belwadi about that. I'd like to see
Yeah.
that information in the future, but, and I think the public should.
I think that's fair.
I get a little upset when I hear that those governments are claiming that they're using this money and they're it doesn't feel good.
No.
That's about it.
The federal portion at least of those programs isn't it new money?
Yes, exactly, and that's fine, and then I'll say thank you very much, federal government. But if it's not net new money, I'm not gonna be saying thank you very much, Boss. I know that's spending our money.
Being this for this report is to kind of keep track.
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate that. That's why I like to support. Thank you very much.
Well, Chad.
We'll chat later on.
No problems.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, page number 4, shows the breakdown of the ISIP funding. And as I mentioned, must be noted that there's some funding that's also included in that from the province. Page 5. So this is going on kind of forward looking. So this is provides details on ongoing discussions and future programs, specifically the Canadian Public Transit Fund, as well as details around the recently signed CHIF agreement. So on the last page, you can see that's where we identified the $100 million that will be coming from the CHIF program.
Is there information on the transit fund in there as well?
So, yes, on the top of page 5. So right now we've had a notional allocation of $11.5 million for 10 years. Starting next year in 2026, it's notionally allocated. We still have to finalize it, apply and get that reconfirmed and enter into agreement. But we do have a notional allocation of 11.5 and it's assigned to very specific capital. And there's also a host of requirements that we'll have to make sure that we comply with as we apply.
Will council know those requirements?
Yes.
We will be on, because I heard parking 0 minimum versus 0.5 minimum, it's going all over the place, I don't know. So I don't want to have to do a flip up to get that again. So we'll get that information at any time.
Yeah, nope, we will be,
It is, but it doesn't say the eligibility, all these requirements underneath, doesn't give you all, it doesn't
Yep.
identify the parking, it doesn't, anything else they're asking for, I don't see that in the list, so.
like we did with the CHIF program, before we officially applied, there will be an admin report that comes forward to council. Including in that will be the 10-year plan of what projects we plan to include under those buckets, and then what the criteria is for
Yeah, and
those.
it's, we're gonna make it the same
Yep.
thing like the half.
Same thing, just like
You
the
want a
half of the
four-story
CHIF.
happen, or do you want as much money? Your call. Not very well with those.
Yeah, I think
I'd
we're
like to know the
targeting
difference.
around June might be the time we.
That's fine,
we're
I know you're
talking
on
about.
that, trust you on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Chair Barati. That concludes my report.
Good. So move.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, John.
Yes, appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Financial implications of US tariffs on the city of Winnipeg.
Okay, so because tariffs are still very new, we don't have any actual financial impacts that have occurred yet. So today's
Great.
update is Matt and Paul will provide kind of an update on what's happened in the environment since we last spoke, since we last met. And kind of any updates of what's kind of happened in the last month, so.
Am I good to proceed?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, councilors. As Tracy just mentioned, today is our now second update on US tariffs. Today, we're going to cover 3 different topics. First, give a summary as to what's happened over the past, I guess we're about 5 weeks since we last met on March 7th. Next, what government supports been announced by the province and the feds. And then third, an estimate on what this means, the current tariffs currently announced means for the capital budget. So we get 2 slides. This sort of gives you the high level, and then next will be a little more detail. Everything it experienced up to March 6th, for when we had the meeting on March 7th, was the United States had put first announced 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods except for energy. They then paused on that. Canada then retaliated with 25% tariffs on $30 billion of select goods. Details on the next slide. To which then the US then 2 days later sort of pulled back and just said, we're going to do 25% tariffs on all goods not compliant with CUSMA, also referred to USMCA, which is the NAFTA 2.0, with carve-outs of 10% for potash, to blunt the impact on US agriculture, and 10% on energy. And just the piece to highlight here is exports that are CUSMA compliant. So just because you are an exporter that has a good that is covered under the trade agreement does not mean you are actually in compliance with the trade agreement. You actually have to demonstrate that the goods in the product sufficient amount originate from within North America and file a bunch of paperwork to actually prove that's the case. And the reason why about 2/3 of Canadian exports prior to this to the United States was not compliant with the trade agreement from filing this paperwork is either you weren't going to be tariffed at all under how you would then fall through under WTO rules, or the tariff would be so small, be less than 5%. So if you're a small business, why bother jumping through all those hoops? And on the flip side, if you do the application and then demonstrate bad paperwork, you could get hit with serious fines. So it's really sort of an asymmetric payoff in terms of, additional benefit versus risk. On March 10th, the Premier of Ontario threatened a 10% export tariff on electricity going to 4 states that receive energy from Ontario. That was then paused. March 12th, the US put in a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum on all countries. And this is cumulative. So if you are a steel producer in Canada that is not compliant with CUSMA, you're now being tariffed at 50%. And then in response, the Canadian government put in 25% retaliatory tariffs, again, at about $30 billion worth of goods, some of it steel, some aluminum. Details next slide. April 3rd, US went ahead with 25% tariffs on all passenger vehicles, including those that are the non-US content of a vehicle that's coming from a CUSMA compliant producer. So you could think of like maybe Ford being compliant. As a hypothetical, 50% of their content is US, 50% isn't, but it's finished in Canada. So then the tariff would only apply to that 50% of non-US content in that vehicle. And then actually what they also said is they've got new tariffs planned for May 3rd on auto parts. And that's where you'd also have to apply to the Commerce Secretary, I believe Commerce Secretary, it could be Treasury, to be excluded and be able to demonstrate that, some US content in the origination. So this is where as we're progressing, this is getting far more complicated and detailed, which from a modeling standpoint makes it more interesting. Then 6 days later, the Canadian government responded, basically mirror image to what the Americans have put in. So now we're saying 25% tariff on anything that's not compliant with CUSMA coming out of the US, so on fully assembled vehicles. And then the US share of anything that was CUSMA compliant. So again, we're not interested in tariffing the Mexicans in any way as part of this. Is strictly focused on the Americans. And then April 10th, this is how things settled out. If you were following the news over those 8 days or so, there was a lot bouncing around. First, there was what President Trump had called Liberation Day, running out a whole list of tariffs. Anywhere going up to 50%, as low as 10%, caused major movements in the US bond market. And that's when he then pulled back on that day. And then where everybody settled out, if you're not Canada, China, or Mexico, you now have a 10% tariff. And again, that'd be layered on to 25% steel and aluminum. So if you're a steel producer in Germany and shipping to the US, you're now getting hit at 35%. Canada and Mexico left alone because, as we've seen, they've already been hitting us in a variety of ways. And then for China, that ratcheted up, first starting at 34%. Chinese didn't back down, and then they retaliated, and it's back and forth, and now cumulative amount of 145% tariff. So to which that move was 125% up to April 10. They'd already done 20% earlier in this administration. So just getting a bit more of the details here. We're going to focus just on reciprocal tariffs quickly. There's some countries that were fully exempt, being Belarus, Burkina Faso, Cuba, North Korea, Palau, Russia, Seychelles, Somalia, and Vatican City. Notably, some of those countries are not allies to the West, but they have been exempt for different reasons. Now, within those, everything that was being tariffed, there's now a number of exemptions. Originally put in saying they're exempting pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber, and critical minerals. And then is when with the new tariffs, the increment of 125 going to 140% on Chinese products, then electronics, including smartphones and laptops, were exempt as part of that. You think of an iPhone, with the price of that would right there go up by probably around 145% to American consumers. So that was then carved out. Longer term, the U.S. has signaled future tariffs on strategic sectors such as pharmaceuticals, lumbers, and semiconductors are possible. And then something else to highlight for Canada here is during President Trump's Liberation Day speech, he did make a special mention of airing a grievance of Canada's supply chain management of our dairy industry, which is that is not new in terms of the Americans negotiating trade agreements. Sort of summary here on Canadian counter tariffs against the United States. March 4th, those $30 billion, we discussed that in the last meeting. So it's a variety of mostly consumer products, orange juice, peanut butter, alcohol, really targeted in a political sense. So for instance, we're tariffing bourbon because that's Kentucky. And then that feeds into the Republican political scene there. So these are not just randomly selected. The Canadian government is doing this to apply political pressure. March 13th, in response to the aluminum and steel tariffs, we hit Americans with approximately targeting about $12.6 billion in steel exports the U.S. has to us, $3 billion in aluminum, and then rounding about the next half of it or so, $14.2 billion in tools, computers, servers, and other products. And then on April 9th, I touched on this in terms of 25% on vehicles, be it either not CUSMA compliant or CUSMA compliant, but hitting the U.S. share of it. Turning now to what the federal government has done in supports. Next slide will be in the province. So they've implemented a tariff remission process. So you can then request the government say, hey, I can't get this product from anywhere else but somewhere in the States, and we are tariffing them. Tariffing that product, could we get remission on that? So that's, I think, case by case, heard by the Minister of Finance. $5 billion trade impact program through Export Development Canada. It's finding markets for Canadian products, and then also navigate these tariff challenges. $500 million in favorably priced loans available through Business Development Bank Canada, again, to help out various companies that are being impacted from either cash flow or the financial management standpoint in market diversification. $1 billion in new financing through Farm Credit Canada to really support the agriculture and food industry on any cash flows it might be dealing with. The other thing here is that China has hit Canada with 100% tariffs on canola oil, canola meal, and peas, as well as 25% tariffs on pork, fish, and seafood products. Certain products of those. That's all in response to what the Chinese said is to when Canada hit Chinese EVs with 100% export tariffs, or import tariffs back in last September. So that's a double whammy now being felt by the ag and food industry. Then the federal government is also then deferring corporate income tax payments and GST, HST remittances from April 2nd to June 30th as a means to support businesses from a cash flow standpoint. Again, it's a deferral, it's not an outright, you don't have to pay. So we have to pay back some point in the future. And then additional funding for the Economic Development Regional Agencies. For instance, the one that covers us is Prairie Economic Development Canada. And I also should add that there was, three new announcements on April 15th. So performance-based remission framework for automakers designed to incentivize continued production investment in Canada. That's to and then help them start getting away. Like basically, an automaker, you're going to stay here. We will help you cover off some of the tariff you might have to pay is to move products back and forth. But if you're saying you're not going to stay, we're not going to help. And then provide 6 months temporary relief for goods imported from the United States are used in Canadian manufacturing, processing, food and beverage packaging for those other to support public health care, public safety, and national security objectives. And finally, new large enterprise tariff loan facility. These are loans to large corporations to help from a financial standpoint to proceed through this. On the provincial front, the province has announced $150 million support for farmers in the ag industry. Just covered why they're going to be providing support there. 36.4 million over 2 years to help revitalize the Port of Churchill. This is another means to then move goods out of Canada, and one beneficiary being Manitoba itself. $1.5 million grant to Canadian manufacturers and exporters to develop a Made in Manitoba program that will offer tariff response support and programming for Manitoba manufacturers impacted by trade. When I was here last time, as we saw that the primary industry that is most exposed to tariffs applied by the Americans are manufacturers here. That's the lion's share. So that's good news. 1.1 billion in potential supplementary provincial budget appropriation for 2025, which would include 100 million in targeted business supports and 100 million in Manitoba Development Corporation. This has not gone ahead yet in the wording in the budget. Something effective like if these tariffs are going to be around for a while. So what that exactly means is unclear, but 6 months to a year is probably not an unreasonable guess, but it's not right away. Then several other policy measures included tax deferrals for businesses out to June of this year, dedicated tariff hotline to provide information to businesses impacted by tariffs, a support Manitoba Buy Local program. We have banned the sale of all American alcohol in our liquor stores. And then prioritization of Canadian suppliers by amending the Government Purchase Act and introducing the Buy Canada Act to give preferential treatment to Canadian suppliers when purchasing goods. And then working with provincial, federal, and territorial governments to reduce internal trade barriers. Another point from last meeting was Manitoba ranks second in being of the lowest internal trade barriers. So there's not a lot of movement that the provincial government can make in terms of us reducing our own barriers, but other provinces making moves. We saw something from Ontario yesterday on this front to the alcohol.
Very little impact for us then.
Little impact in terms of what we can do from a legislative standpoint, but others reducing their barriers can then benefit our businesses.
Benefit for us.
Yeah, in that direction. Yeah. And finally, so done some analysis on the municipal capital budget to ask, based upon the current tariffs are put in place, what does this mean for additional incremental cost on the capital budget? So here we have used our large Canadian, it's an input-output model, static, we can get into technicalities if you'd like, where we say, okay, here's a list of projects the city of Winnipeg is going to go implement for the capital budget, and then we can then bolt on pieces to say what are the tariffs that would be paid on that by what the Canadian government is charging on these products. From the list of tariffs that we're modeling here, which has all been discussed in the presentation. But then also we can then ask, okay, well, what portion of what we need to import to go build what we're going to build comes from the United States? And then this is where we use our US model to then say, okay, they are tariffing a whole variety of products, or in this case, pretty much everything in different countries, different rates. Where do they typically get these products from? So they might need to import something to produce something that then we buy from them. So it's that secondary and tertiary effects to try and capture all these dynamics. So the US putting tariffs on other countries does have a secondary impact on our capital budget. That said, that element is quite small. It really is in the Canadian side tariffing US products. So currently we're estimating that the overall increase from the tariff result in a 2.3% increase in the budget from all these tariffs listed. So that's low and generally good news. It also fits somewhat with what the Bank of Canada put out in two scenarios yesterday as their monetary policy report, where they said for their worst case scenario, which again they say is illustrative and wide range of potential outcomes for how this actually plays out. They had CPI peaking about 3.5% in a protracted 1-year trade war. So yeah, so for this would be 2.3%. Construction inflation trend is 3, so this would put it to about just under 5.5. Yeah, and then within that 2.3, that's the average from 25 through 2030. There is a range, and that varies from year to year at 2.1 to 2.4. The reason that varies is because we change up what we buy from year to year. So then that's going to then have an impact as to what the overall increase on tariffs will be. So,
Also calculated again, I love the buy Canadian model, but the reason why we don't generally do that, because it's cheaper to buy somewhere else. Is that number 2.3 include the buy Manitoba or buy Canada scenario?
No, it doesn't. That's a good question. The modeling is basically, these are current supply chains, so let's assume things operate as they normally have, apply these tariffs, what's that
The other
impact?
layers are.
Yeah, so again, if you were to then say, let's go buy Canadian, because presumably that you do go do that because that's gonna be cheaper than whatever the tariff applied to be on the American product, so then that would come down. The other point to make here is when I raised before about compliance with CUSMA, is getting data on what these products are, which industries are like actually in compliance, so we can then start to parse out how those tariffs are effectively being impacted. We can't do that. So this is actually a maximum level amount, sort of more getting to the language of.
To your question,
Right, yeah.
agreement as an up to amount.
Yeah.
We're able to substitute some of this with local content, that 2.3 potentially managed out.
Yeah, it does not factor into any cost management or cost mitigating strategies that we would.
No, but if it's
It's kind of a worst case scenario. If people.
If we, let's say the Northland Treatment Plant, the biggest problem. Then, so tariffs are there, but we're all gonna buy these beautiful thing from Canada, but it's costs 25-30% more. So it's actually more than the tariff. I guess we'd have to decide in our policy, if that's, do you pick Canada all the way, or do you say you've got to balance the two up together?
Yeah.
That's not really in here yet. Not in here?
That's right.
Okay, that's cool. We'll come, when that policy comes out eventually, yeah. Thank you.
And just one more point to make there also, like if we're like, take ourselves out of being the city of Winnipeg, but let's say we're the auto industry. We don't have the detailed data of like, well, what percentage of each element within the auto industry is CUSMA compliant?
Right.
To then start saying, well, instead of just calling it across the board 25% tariff, if half of them are compliant, then it'd be an effective tariff rate of 12.5%. Right. So I am in discussion with StatsCan to try and get that. They did point us to a source from the US government, but you have to sign up for it, and I'm not so sure about that right now. So yeah, just finish with this example here. If you go spend $500 million on a capital budget for a year, on average, that 2.3% over the 6 years, that result in additional costs of $11.5 million.
This is for illustrative purposes.
Yes.
Exactly, and
It's good to know what our
details will
risk
come at a
level
later
is.
date, probably James' budget. But that's fine, thank you.
And with that, I'll take questions.
Question for the clerk, will this be posted?
Yes, it is on the agenda and will be in the minutes as well.
Perfect, thank you.
It was added yesterday when they updated the agenda. It wasn't
It
originally
was added,
posted.
okay.
Yeah, it
I
wasn't
didn't see it
originally
again, that's
posted,
where
but
it's
it was in the reposting yesterday, it was.
Just after 2:30.
Oh, I bet. Okay. Sure.
Is there any estimate of as to how much in goods and whatever is CUSMA eligible but has just been chosen not to go through CUSMA because it fell under GATT or some of these other trade agreements?
Good question, not that I'm aware of. The only number I know of is about 1/3 of Canadian exports are compliant versus
1/3.
Only 1/3, yeah.
Right, because there really hasn't been an incentive on.
Yeah.
Station. There hasn't been an incentive for firms to register to
Right.
come. I suspect that if these tariffs do stay in place for a longer period, there's gonna be more
The
people.
1/3 number is 1/3 of items were flowing under free trade under CUSMA, and 2/3 were not. Like what items are not CUSMA eligible that are made in Canada?
So you could be an auto manufacturer that maybe like a small part manufacturer, and you're just gonna look and see like the hurdles here are too much to go ahead and do it, and then maybe it's the lowest country, it gets into WTO rules. But I think let's suppose that low rate then is 5%. I would rather go pay a 5% tariff as a small business than have to, instead of putting it on the purchaser, because they're probably gonna say, eat it for me, please. And then instead of going through all the hoops to then go become compliant, because that's where it is,
There's a lot of ag products that I think are eligible but aren't necessarily
yeah.
going through the process right now.
Yeah, now they're incentivized to do it, because also the other piece is if you didn't do it before, maybe you're paying up to 5% tariff. Let's say it's a 2.5%. So it's really small.
Sure.
And then if you then were found, well, your application was not proper, we're going to hit you with a large penalty. So
It's not necessarily the products themselves, where the firm
Yeah.
taking the time to make the CUSMA compliant by filling out.
and then of most of what is compliant, it was autos. So which makes sense given,
Dollars.
large companies that have,
Is there anything that we're doing or our partners are doing to help businesses that that have goods that are customer eligible to take those steps? Like how complicated are those steps? Again, 5% to me doesn't sound that significant, but depending on billions and billions of dollars, it starts adding up. But for a small business, I see why maybe the process isn't worthwhile. How complicated is it really?
I think I'm not familiar with the exact details. I'm gonna give it a little bit. Yeah, but it is, you have to show like where you're actually getting your parts and stuff from.
Right. The inputs.
Yeah.
That you're producing.
Yeah. And then on a support standpoint, I have seen stuff from Export Development Canada to then provide information to folks to try and help on that front to move it along.
It's a new world.
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay, any further questions?
So I appreciate the information. And it was a hard ball to keep
Yeah.
track of. And this, I think, helps Winnipeggers know where that ball is at this moment. Just to reiterate, we don't know where the ball is going next week.
It's a moving target. It's a moving
I have
target.
news months ago, that report just changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're gonna keep going for a bit, so that
We
10%
had to
reciprocal
stamp-
tariff is on for 90 days.
If the tariffs do change on.
Time of day, never mind.
Yeah, time of day, hour.
Yeah.
Okay,
Move to receive.
thank you very
Possible
much.
to be done.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed carried. Councillor Lardner moves consent to adjournment.
Thank you.
All those in favor, opposed carried. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.